Chapter 1879. Faced with the female version of Wang Zhen who was pregnant with Tuanzi, Lu Qingyi's expression was extremely complicated. Although having a child had been part of her and Wang Zhen's plans after they fell in love, she hadn't expected it to be so early. Furthermore, the one who was pregnant wasn't her, but Wang Zhen himself. The most important thing now is to find a way to go back. Otherwise, if I stay here for too long, I'll really have to give birth. Wang Zhen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He took a few deep breaths to stabilize the baby, but the mask of pain on his face was still very obvious. He had a feeling that something would happen to this child soon. If that really happened, it wouldn't be a joke. Wang Zhen couldn't imagine that a man like him would have to experience the pain of childbirth. According to the original diary trajectory, as long as the Four Emperors assembly was successfully completed, they would be able to directly return to the modern world. But now that the diary trajectory had been disrupted, the original ending of the Four Emperors assembly would also change, and many other complicated trajectories might even emerge. Even if the Four Emperors assembly went on smoothly, whether they could go back after completing their mission would be a problem. It was precisely because of this child in his belly that Wang Zhen had been focusing almost all his attention on it these days, and had no time to think about anything else. No matter how beautiful this holy girl of Holy Stone Church was, Wang Zhen wasn't in the mood to admire her at all, let alone have any lewd thoughts about this body. Of course, this was also thanks to Lu Qingyi's strict discipline. Although the two of them had transmigrated into different people's bodies, they still knew each other very well. At the same time, Lu Qingyi had full trust in Wang Zhen and felt that he would never do anything to let her down. Ah, that's great. Lotus Sun couldn't help but feel envious, even though she knew very well that this wasn't the time to be envious. As Wang Ling had expected, these two snake women were on their side, and had both transmigrated from the modern world. Snake Woman number 1, Lu Qingyi, had already revealed her identity, but at that moment, Snake Woman number 2 suddenly laughed and looked at Lotus Sunday. Since you've guessed Sister Qingyi's identity, can you guess mine? Lotus Sun replied with a smile, you're Taoist priest Yu Yuqing, right? Seeing that her identity had been revealed, Yu Yuqing looked like she was asking for trouble. Ah, I clearly haven't known you for long, so how do you know me so well? You were able to guess my identity immediately. Lotus Sun smiled. Taoist Yu has an elegant temperament. Even if you enter this snake woman's body, this aspect won't change easily, right? Of course, the most important thing is. Taoist priest Yu, can you put down the feather duster in your hand? Yu Yuqing smiled awkwardly. She didn't expect the feather duster in her hand to betray her. She had the habit of shaking off the dust when she was thinking about things. This was also an occupational disease that she had developed over the years as a Taoist. However, in order to not expose her identity as the Lamia, she had to endure these days. But now that the trajectory of the script was completely messed up, she could finally release her nature. However, he couldn't find a suitable flying duster for the time being, so he could only use the feather duster he found in the restaurant as a replacement. It was this habitual movement that Lotus Sun sensed something was off. Then, Wang Ying quickly summarized the current situation to Lu Qingyi and Yu Yuqing telepathically. At this point, everyone fell into deep thought again. Getting down to business, the East Great Emperor sighed. I didn't expect things to turn out like this. According to the previous script, King Tinkuan shouldn't have been killed by me. There's clearly a third party involved. Lu Qingyi analyzed and looked at the East Great Emperor. And I think that if Senior really isn't hiding anything from us, there's only one possibility left. Now that things have come to this Emperor indeed has nothing to hide. Senior Wang is in my body, and he witnesses everything. This Emperor is counting on Senior Wang to show off for me at the Four Emperors Assembly. Who would have thought something like this would happen? The East Great Emperor was very anxious, and didn't seem to be hiding anything at all. then it's actually very obvious that there's a third party who also knows about this diary. Furthermore, they intend to deliberately destroy the trajectory of the diary to achieve their own ulterior motives. At that moment, Lu Qingyi stared straight at the East Great Emperor. Senior, I'll ask you again. Are you sure you're not lying? Do you really not know anything about this mysterious Senior Wen? The East Great Emperor felt a little awkward when he looked at Lu Qingyi like this. She was clearly a girl with a much lower realm than him, but for some reason, the East Great Emperor felt like he was shorter than Lu Qingyi. This was a powerful interrogation technique with the gaze, and Wang Zhen had the most right to speak about it. Ever since Wang Zhen and Lu Qingyi got together, Lu Qingyi had been particularly strict with Wang Zhen's interactions with other members of the opposite sex, and would often use this kind of gaze to interrogate him. Thus, it was useless to lie under Lu Qingyi's gaze. Lu Qingyi would keenly pick up on the slightest hint of something amiss. Thus, after Lu Qingyi stared into the East Great Emperor's eyes for a few minutes, she suddenly withdrew her gaze and rubbed her chin doubtfully. From what I can see, the East Great Emperor isn't lying. He really doesn't know anything about the unexpected situation that's happening, or about this mysterious Senior Wen. So first of all, we have to figure out what this third party is planning by disrupting the diary's original trajectory. At that moment, Wang Ying's voice sounded. Borrowing the East Great Emperor's body, he snapped his fingers, and a circle of light suddenly appeared in the air in front of him. Inside the circle was the scene of Zhang Zidong talking to Madame Shanqiu and the others in another room. At that moment, Zhang Zidong and Madame Shanqiu were testing each other out, and they happened to ask about the key topic of the Book of Nine Realms. Madame said that as a reward for my master, she would reveal a secret about the Book of Nine Realms. Zhang Zidong asked, Madame said that as a reward for my master, she would reveal a secret about the Book of Nine Realms. This Madame's words naturally count. Yes, Madame. Madame Shanqiu smiled amiably, and then gave Sun Fu a look. Fu, take it out. Yes, Madame. Sun Fu nodded obediently, and then took out a familiar scroll from a storage ring. This is, Zhang Zidong and the others in the other room were instantly stunned. It's as you can see. Madame Shanqiu narrowed her eyes and said mysteriously, this is the other Book of Nine Realms. It's indeed an authentic copy from Dao Ancestor Wang. Then the one we got, it's also authentic, Madame Shanqiu said. There were originally two Books of Nine Realms. One was the Yang Scroll, and the other was the Yin Scroll. Chapter 1880. There were actually two Books of Nine Realms in this cultivation world at the same time, whether it was Zhang Zipei, who was watching from the front, or Wang Ling and the others who were watching from the next room, they were all slightly stunned. Dao Ancestor Wang, designed two books at the beginning? Zhang Zipei asked. There was indeed only one book at the beginning. Madame Shanqiu frowned and said, do you remember the Life and All Things bowl that was sold at the beginning of the auction? It's a chaos magic treasure that can replicate any object. So it's that bowl. No, that bowl isn't that strong. It's one thing to replicate elixirs and talismans, but how can it replicate the Book of Nine Realms as well? Zhang Zipei was puzzled. It's a magic treasure that has the same function as that bowl. As far as I know, this magic treasure should be an object from the Outer God Palace, and has something to do with the old world. Her words once again stunned everyone present. Perhaps not many modern cultivators knew or came into contact with the matters of the old world, but among the ancient cultivators, this was a common topic. Humans were creatures full of curiosity. They would never stop exploring and tracing back to past civilizations. It was a never-ending cycle. In the heyday of the old world, the rulers of the old world led by the outer gods would certainly trace the origin of the universe. Although they were a magnificent race in the history of the universe, Wang Ling was certain that they absolutely weren't the origin of the universe. In the vast universe, there were all kinds of mysterious species. The old world, the world of the dragon clan, and the world of cultivators created by humans were nothing more than a drop in the ocean of the vast universe. Madam, is the Book of Nine Realms the Yin Scroll or the Yang Scroll? Zhang Zipei was a little stupefied as he opened his eyes and asked. It's the Yin Scroll. Madam Shanxiu said, if you sense it carefully with your spiritual senses, you should be able to sense that it's surrounded by some extraordinary energy that doesn't belong to cultivators. But I still don't understand why that person attacked King Tiankuan. Zhang Zipei frowned. Because the Yin Scroll of the Book of Nine Realms originally belonged to King Tiankuan. Ah. Also, King Tiankuan entrusted that master thief called Zhang Zipei to give it to me. Ah. What's wrong, brother? Why are you so surprised? Zhang Zizi wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and tried to regain his composure. At the same time, he began to recall the events that had happened a long time ago. He vaguely seemed to remember this matter, but if Madame Shanxiu did not mention it at this moment, he was afraid that he would never remember it in his lifetime. Do you still remember when Zhang Zi stole the mixed immortal stone in front of everyone at the auction? That was when King Tiankuan's commission began. Madame Shanxiu said, therefore, the Chaos Immortal Stone is just a bait. King Tiankuan had planned to hand it over from the start, as it was a reward for Zhang Zidua. And their real purpose is to transfer the Yin volume of the Book of the Nine Realms to me. At this point, the surrounding people were all stunned. No one would have thought that the truth would be like this. On the surface, King Tiankuan had attended the auction in such a dignified manner, guarded the Chaos Immortal Stone, and threatened to capture Zhang Zipei. All of this had been done in order to move the Book of Nine Realms out. At this moment, Chen Ren could not help but speak up, so, King Tiankuan's real purpose is to ask Madam to protect the Yin volume of the Book of the Nine Realms, and he also knows that he has been targeted from the beginning. Madame Shanxiu seemed a little surprised by Chen Ren's accurate guess. After a moment of daze, she nodded. Brother Chen Ren is right, but why did he fight with the gentleman in room 1 for the Yang volume at the auction? Sun Fu asked. Because under normal circumstances, it is impossible for a copied item to surpass the original. But because this Yin volume is enhanced by the power of the Great Old World, it is surrounded by a mysterious force. This way, the situation is different from what we imagined. Madame Shanxiu explained in detail, compared to the Yang volume, the Yin volume has a more terrifying power. Not only can you inherit Dao ancestor Wang's legacy, but you can also obtain the power of the Great Old World. According to what this old woman knows, this copy of the Yin scroll has no restrictions. No matter who opens it, they can see the words inside. Could this be the Great Old World's recovery plan? Zhang Zi made a bold guess. That's right. This recovery plan is very dangerous. King Tiankuan clearly guessed this, which is why he started to set it up. Madame Shanxiu said, in the end, this Yin scroll is only a copy. As long as King Tiankuan can successfully obtain the Yang scroll, he can offset part of the Yin scroll's power and then gather his strength to destroy it. Unfortunately, he didn't bid for your master. So he had no choice but to change his plan and forcibly seize the Yang volume. He did not expect to be ambushed by a third party in the process. So his death has nothing to do with my master? It's not completely unrelated. But this matter cannot be blamed on you. After all, it looks like King Tiankuan intends to digest this matter on his own. I came to this conclusion based on some of the clues and evidence I currently have. Madame Shanxiu sighed and said, don't you find it strange that King Tiankuan didn't leave anything behind the moment he turned into ashes? It is indeed very strange. Zhang Zi nodded. A normal cultivator's death wouldn't have been so clean. King Tiankuan evaporated in an instant and disappeared without a trace. This method is very heaven-defying. Because the moment the third party got rid of him, they also took away all his storage magic treasures. From the very beginning, they were after the Yin volume of the Book of Nine Realms. After listening to the entire inference, everyone couldn't help but have mixed feelings in their hearts. Although Madame Shanxiu had only come to this conclusion based on the clues they currently had, with her status in the cultivation world, the credibility of her words was very high. This was a very reasonable conclusion, and also explained a lot of things that he hadn't been able to figure out before. So the question now was, who on earth was this third party? In fact, at that moment, he vaguely had the answer in his heart. Madam, since you've said so much, you should know a little about this third party, right? Zhang Zi asked solemnly at that moment. It's just a guess, I can't be sure. Madame Shanxiu shook her head slightly and said, this person's power is spread throughout the Central Territory and the 4 major territories. He's a new force that has flourished in the last 100 years, and has made a lot of money from the war between the Eastern and Western territories. He has a very solid foundation, could it be? Zhang Zi suddenly thought of something. Yes, this force's surname is Peng. The error-free chapters of the daily life of the Immortal King will continue to be updated on the new C-Book Pavilion. There are no advertisements on the site, so please bookmark and recommend the new C-Book Pavilion. If you like the daily life of the Immortal King, please bookmark. The daily life of the Immortal King is updated the fastest in the C-Book Pavilion. Chapter 1881. It could be said that Madame Shanxiu's words explained a lot of things that he hadn't been able to understand before. For example, given Dao Ancestor Wang's prestigious status in the cultivation world, why had he chosen a rebellious person like Ping Shiren as his disciple? After all, talent wasn't the only thing that mattered when it came to choosing a disciple, morality and character were equally important. Looking at it all now, Ping Shiren was nothing more than a usurper who claimed to be Dao Ancestor Wang's disciple. Because of Wang Ling's promise, Dao Ancestor Wang had no choice but to accept him and pass on his legacy to him. I didn't expect things to turn out like this. Even East Great Emperor was surprised when he heard this. It wasn't that the 4 emperors hadn't paid attention to the Ping family, which had risen to prominence in the last 100 years, but they hadn't expected them to actually have such an idea. Seniors, I suddenly thought of a possibility, Lotus Sun suddenly said at that moment, her expression extremely solemn. Miss Sun, please speak. East Great Emperor nodded and looked like he was all ears. I'm thinking, what if King Tianquan's death and Ping Shiren's subsequent fight for the Book of Nine Realms are actually part of the historical trajectory? It had to be said that Lotus Sun's very bold idea shocked everyone present and they looked at each other in dismay. East Great Emperor asked, are you saying that it's still part of the historical trajectory? Lotus Sun nodded obediently, then analyzed the situation unhurriedly. I think that the progress of the diary, including East Great Emperors, is actually the first time we've experienced it. Although it says what will happen later, it's true that things haven't developed according to what's written in the diary, and it seems like we've already deviated from the historical trajectory. But if all of this was planned by the senior who wrote the diary, that's a different story. Since that senior has the ability to write this diary that transcends timelines, then he definitely has the power to influence the development of the timeline. If he has already calculated King Tianquan's death, then he will definitely be able to control the trajectory of events. If he has already calculated King Tianquan's death and Ping Shiren's obtaining of the Book of Nine Realms, then everything else actually makes sense. As for what I said above, there's actually evidence to back it up. After all, Ping Shiren did indeed inherit Dao Ancestor Wang's legacy in the modern cultivation society. This legacy is very pure, and clearly wasn't given to him by the Yin scroll of the Book of Nine Realms. Everyone was stunned by her words. Wang Zhen thought it over carefully and felt that there was some truth to her words. Actually, Rongrong's words are quite logical. Also, why do I feel that rather than saying that the person who was clearly arranged is the dead King Tianquan, it's better to say that it's this Ping Shiren? Lu Qingyi quickly nodded in agreement with Wang Zhen's opinion. That makes sense. After all, in the timeline of the modern cultivation society, even if Ping Shiren inherited Dao ancestor Wang's orthodoxy, he would still be beaten up by Senior Wang, wouldn't he? That is to say, this orthodoxy was probably inherited by him on purpose in our timeline. Wang Ling and Wang Ying, so that was how it was. At that moment, Wang Ling couldn't help thinking that Lotus Sun was a genius. He had only wanted to find the mastermind behind the mysterious text, but he had neglected this layer of logical connection. That was right, this Ping Shiren had already inherited his orthodoxy in the modern cultivation society. Even if he had inherited Dao ancestor Wang's orthodoxy, it wasn't as strong as Wang Ling had imagined. Orthodoxy was a good thing. It could greatly increase a cultivator's cultivation in a short period of time, which was the equivalent of a grandmaster giving a meal to eat. But orthodoxy also had its limits. Because if Ping Shiren had talent that surpassed Dao ancestor Wang's, inheriting Dao ancestor Wang's orthodoxy would instead be a shackle for him. And this point was actually proven right now. Because Ping Shiren wasn't interested in the orthodox Book of Nine Realms, he was instead more interested in the Yin Scroll replica. After all, the Yin Scroll contained the power of the old world, which could double his strength and give him infinite possibilities. After analyzing the situation at this point, it seemed that the current situation was already infinitely clear. Faced with a script that had completely deviated from the diary's trajectory, Wang Ling finally knew how to put a full stop to this plot from the eternal world. It looks like we still have to wait for the Four Emperors' assembly tomorrow. At that moment, Wang Ying looked around and said, "It's impossible that Great West Emperor doesn't know about King Tianquan's death." Under normal circumstances, given the conflict between Great West Emperor and Great East Emperor, he would have already come looking for revenge. But Great West Emperor hasn't done anything yet. This can only mean one thing, and that is that Great West Emperor has also thought of this, which is why he hasn't made a move. In that case, the force that Ping Shiren belongs to will still make a move, said Yu Wuqing. She did her best to straighten her posture and control her snake body. Although moving was no different from walking on two legs in a normal situation, this abrupt feeling was still present. This Ping Shiren doesn't know that King Tianquan has already transferred the Yin Scroll, and that it's in Madame Shanxiu's hands. So the most likely scenario now is that he'll directly snatch the Yang Scroll. Then, he'll use a magic treasure or secret art from the old world to replicate the Yin Scroll. Daoist Yu is absolutely right. At that moment, Wang Ying's eyes met Yu Wuqing's. This Daoist priest was young, but extremely quick-witted. On the other side, Zhang Xipei had also come over with the Yin Scroll that Madame Shanxiu had given him. Madame Shanxiu was a woman of her word. Not only did she explain the whole story, she also directly offered the Yin Scroll to Wang Ying. She wasn't stupid. In her hands, this thing was no different from an invisible time bomb. Furthermore, as an orthodox cultivator, she had no intention of opening it at all. No cultivator in their right mind would want the terrifying civilization of the old world to revive in the eternal cultivation world. That dark and twisted history should remain as history forever, sealed in the long river of time. What should we do? What should we do with this thing? Zhang Xipei took the initiative to hand over the Yin Scroll. Wang Ling accepted the Dao Yin Scroll, but he had no intention of opening it. Although he was curious about the old world, he was now well aware that he was making a decision on behalf of future cultivators. Thus, he didn't think too much about it. A dazzling black and white flame immediately rose in his hand, and with a bang, the Yin Scroll was directly burned to ashes. East Great Emperor's Adam's apple couldn't help bobbing up and down. He never thought that the Yin Scroll of the Book of Nine Realms would actually be burned so easily. What kind of method was this? In the last few days, the methods that this senior hiding in his body had repeatedly displayed had already surpassed East Great Emperor's own understanding. Especially when he had just heard people say that Ping Shiren, who had inherited Dao ancestor Wang's legacy, had been beaten up by this senior Wang in the modern cultivation world. East Great Emperor's heart was filled with mixed feelings. What kind of person was Tao Ancestor Wang? This was the legend and pearl of the eternal cultivation world. This group of people actually didn't revere such a person at all. This was too scary. Even East Great Emperor himself began to have faint doubts. Was the first founder of cultivation Tao Ancestor Wang or not? Chapter 1882. At the entrance of Spring Orchid Restaurant, Madame Shan Xiao left with Mei Yunhai, Sun Fu, Chen Ren, and Guijia. Sun Fu successfully received the recommendation letter from Mr. Room 1 to the East Emperor's Imperial Palace. She was very pleased. Originally, the East Emperor only promised to keep Sun Fu by his side temporarily. It was just a vague, evasive move. He wanted to wait for the right time to reject Sun Fu. But now, Madame Shan Xiao had fulfilled her promise regarding the Book of Nine Realms. It could be said that she had made a great contribution. He felt that if he still did not agree to Sun Fu's request, it would be unreasonable. Therefore, he immediately asked Zhang Zi to draft a recommendation letter using Li Ren's notes and stamped it with the royal seal that was prepared in advance. He then sent the entire letter to Sun Fu. Sure enough, after receiving the recommendation letter, Sun Fu was overjoyed. Oh my God, this is the 9-star royal seal. This person is really a big shot. His status is noble. With this recommendation letter, there's a 100% chance that you'll be able to cultivate in the East Region Imperial Palace. The few of them stared at the seal on the recommendation letter with their eyes wide open. The royal family was a noble member of any domain, but there were actually different ranks among the members of the royal family. Under normal circumstances, a royal family with a 9-star royal seal could only mean one thing. That was that this royal family had a direct bloodline connection with the emperor in the East Emperor Palace. Therefore, their status was far more noble than ordinary royal families. Thank you, madam. If it wasn't for you, I think this matter most likely wouldn't have happened. Sun Fu smiled brightly, like a dazzling summer flower. Sister Fu, do you really want to enter the East Emperor Palace? Is there something there that attracts you? Madam has the best relationship with the South Emperor Palace. If you entered the South Emperor Palace, Madam wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. Guijia asked. I can only say that this is a kind of fate. I always feel that I am fated with the East Emperor Palace, and I seem to have met this Mr. Room 1 somewhere before. Sun Fu said. You will have a chance to meet again. Madame Shan Xiao smiled. We? Sun Fu was stunned. Yes, you guys. Madame Shan Xiao maintained her benevolent smile. She swept her gaze over Sun Fu, Chen Ren, and Guijia with a meaningful look in her eyes. On the other side, after sorting out his basic thoughts, Wang Ling already had a clear idea of what to do next. If he was right, Ping Shiren would definitely continue to make a move on the Yang scroll in his hands. In this situation, all he needed to do was wait for the heir to come to him, but he felt that he couldn't wait that long. He had to find Ping Shiren and then resolve this ill-fated relationship from ancient times. However, with the vastness of the eternal world and the number of galaxies, it was like looking for a needle in a haystack to find a person in the vast number of planets. He had no choice but to require the help of others. Fortunately, Wang Ling had already contacted quite a few partners. As long as everyone worked together, it wouldn't be difficult to find Ping Shiren no matter how vast the universe was. With the help of the other great emperors, it'll be easier to find this Ping Shiren if we combine the strength of the 4 emperors to lay an inescapable net, East Great Emperor said through the voice chat spell. But the 4 emperors' assembly hasn't started yet. How do we contact the other great emperors? Zhang Zi asked secretly. There was a way to contact the other great emperors, but it wasn't direct. They still needed to wait for their responses, and any delay might cause problems. Thus, East Great Emperor thought that it was best to have someone who could act as a medium to pass on information at this time. Furthermore, this person had to be very clear about the positions of the four great emperors. The first person East Great Emperor thought of in the eternal world was Lu Mukin, the president of the Central Auction House. Senior Wang, didn't you say before that Lu Renwen, the son of the president of the Central Auction House, is also one of you? East Great Emperor suddenly asked at that moment. That's right. He also transmigrated from modern cultivation society to the eternal world. Wang Ying nodded. If this senior can use his identity as the son of the president of the Central Auction House, Lu Renwen, to invite his father, Lu Mukin, out of retirement. This Lu Mukin should be a medium to pass on information about us four emperors, and he might have the means to find a place for us to meet before the four emperors' assembly, East Great Emperor said. He knows about you four emperors. Who on earth is he? Wang Ying was very curious. I heard that this Lu Mukin used to be Dao ancestor Wang's personal guard. No wonder he has this kind of ability. Wang Ying sighed. He felt that all this could be considered an arrangement. Fortunately, the person who had transmigrated into Lu Renwen's body was Qin Zong, so as long as Wang Ling sent a telepathic message to Qin Zong from afar to ask him to do this, it shouldn't be difficult to invite Lu Mukin out of retirement. In fact, Lu Mukin and Qin Zong arrived a little faster than he had imagined. He had only sent the message to Qin Zong less than a quarter of an hour ago. Two tightly wrapped black-robed figures appeared at the entrance of the Spring Orchid brothel. One of them was Qin Zong, who had transmigrated into Lu Renwen's body. Everyone was very surprised that this matter had been settled so quickly. Senior Qin settled it so quickly. Lotus Sun glanced at Qin Zong, who had taken off his hood, and then saw the person standing next to him also take off his hood. This was a middle-aged man with a well-proportioned build and a mustache. At first glance, Lotus Sun's impression of him was that he was naturally dignified and gave off a faint sense of dignity. This person was none other than Lu Mukin himself. Considering that Lu Mukin had previously been Dao ancestor Wang's personal guard, it wasn't too surprising that he had this kind of aura. But very quickly, Lotus Sun realized that this Lu Mukin was gradually losing his composure. He first looked at Lotus Sun and said, "Mistress." Lotus Sun immediately returned a startled look. You are, then?" That dignified face started to twist, and the moment he saw East Great Emperor, he dropped to one knee on the ground on the spot and threw himself at Wang Ling with tears in his eyes. "Shifu, oh Shifu. Disciple missed you so much. What would disciple do without you?" Wang Ling, in fact, even Wang Ling himself never thought that Audiobook would actually transmigrate into the body of Lu Mukin, the president of the Central Auction House. This world was really too small. At that moment, Wang Ling sighed endlessly in his heart. Chapter 1883. As Audiobook threw a tantrum, Wang Ling couldn't help feeling a little absent-minded. In that instant, he suddenly felt that the world was really too small. Of course, all of this was an inexorable arrangement and coincidence, and it could also be said to be a kind of luck. Although he hadn't cast the great luck spell on himself, Qin Zong was the only koi he had chosen in the cultivation world. With this koi, their luck naturally wouldn't be too bad. Lu Mukin, the president of the Central Auction House, was the only person who controlled the intelligence network of the four territories. Throughout the ages, no one had been able to replace Lu Mukin as the perfect middleman. It was just that for Wang Ling, whether or not Audiobook could play the role of Lu Mukin well was still a question. In short, the real Lu Mukin would never do something like cry for his parents and throw himself at anyone he saw. He was actually rubbing his head against Wang Ling's chest. What a scandal. Wang Ling calmly pushed Audiobook's head away and sighed in his heart, feeling that Audiobook didn't have the slightest sensitivity. If Ryoko Kamiya saw this, she would definitely be jealous. That's not right, how do you know this? Just then, Wang Ying suddenly asked Wang Ling telepathically. As Wang Ling's shadow, he and Wang Ling were telepathically connected, so he noticed a blind spot in Wang Ling's thoughts. Wang Ying found it inconceivable that an unromantic teenager who always had a poker face would actually know how to be jealous. Wang Ling felt that Wang Ying was making a mountain out of a molehill when he asked this question. Of course, he hadn't experienced the various emotions that a normal person should have, and naturally didn't know what jealousy felt like. But it wasn't that he didn't completely understand what jealousy meant. To be exact, Wang Ling knew the literal state of every emotion. In Wang Ling's dictionary, jealousy was categorized as a special possessiveness. For example, this was the reaction you would have when you saw something or someone you liked getting closer to someone else. In this regard, Wang Ling deliberately gave Wang Ying an example patiently. For example, when he sometimes saw other people eating limited edition crispy noodle snacks that he couldn't buy, he would often have this feeling. This is jealousy. This is definitely jealousy. Wang Ying dropped his forehead into his hand. He felt that Wang Ling's understanding of jealousy seemed to have a strange deviation, but obviously, this wasn't the time to discuss this. Right now, their biggest mission was to gather the 4 emperors and hold a secret meeting ahead of time. Then, they would set up a trap to lure Ping Shiren out. As the core of this plan, Audiobook would play a crucial role in the subsequent plot. Don't worry, Master. I have confidence in this matter. Elder, you don't need to move. I'll use Lu Mukin's method to call the other imperial capitals here in Chunlan building, Audiobook promised solemnly. Everyone knew that in the immemorial cultivation world, other than Dao ancestor Wang, the people with the highest status were the 4 emperors who controlled the 4 domains. Under normal circumstances, it was extremely difficult for a normal cultivator to meet the great emperor. As for making the 4 emperors instantly gather at a specific location, it was even more impossible in the eyes of ordinary people. However, Lu Mukin had this special charisma. Even Zhang Zizi was very curious. Even if Lu Mukin was once Dao ancestor Wang's guard, does he really have the face to invite other great emperors? There must be some other reason behind this. Do you have something on them to threaten them? Threaten? How is that possible? In any case, this Lu Mukin used to be Dao ancestor Wang's guard. How could he do such a despicable thing? Furthermore, the targets of this threat are the great emperors. Although this Lu Mukin is strong, it won't be easy to offend 4 great emperors at the same time, right? Audiobook said. After listening in, Zhang Zizi frowned and nodded. That's true. But now, everyone was even more curious as to what method Lu Mukin would use to call the other 3 great emperors here. In the end, Audiobook just took out a storage bag from Lu Mukin's body. Actually, he hadn't been idle in the past few days when he hadn't met up with Wang Ling. He had been studying his identity through the memories Lu Mukin had passed on to him, putting himself in the role and waiting for an opportunity to act. He knew that he would definitely meet up with Wang Ling, so he had already familiarized himself with everything early on. To everyone's surprise, the thing that Audiobook took out from Lu Mukin's personal storage bag was very simple. It was a crystal communication ball that couldn't be any more ordinary, and was a relatively advanced communication device in the immemorial cultivation world. Unlike ordinary communication talismans, not only could it hold more spirit energy imprints corresponding to different cultivators, it could also establish a huge network of contacts. The most important thing was that it could directly make a face-to-face video call, and project images into the air. You're so close that you can directly use a communication ball to summon someone? East Great Emperor was stupefied and shocked. Although he also had Lu Mukin's communication ball, as one of the 4 great emperors, he knew that summoning a great emperor-level figure to a designated location. Even if it was Lu Mukin, the process wouldn't be that convenient. But now, Lu Mukin had actually directly called to summon someone. Had his relationship with the other 3 great emperors already reached this level? At that moment, East Great Emperor started to feel a sense of crisis. Don't be nervous, it's not as outrageous as you think. Audiobook gave a mysterious smile. Then he used the communication crystal ball to directly contact West Great Emperor. Little Shi, you can come over now. That's right, that Chunlan house on the Central Trade Planet, it's next to the temple. Little Shi. Everyone was startled by this familiar form of address. Was the person calling Little Sheep really an emperor? And not an underling? Why did it feel like déjà vu of a mafia boss ordering his underling around? For all. East Great Emperor had a mental breakdown. He never expected the relationship between West Great Emperor and Lu Mukin to be this good. Directly calling him Little Shi was outrageous. But just as he was about to vomit blood, West Great Emperor's voice came through the communication crystal ball. Are you sure? King Tinkuan is dead, and I'm still dealing with the chaos here. The court officials have reported to me to directly send troops to attack the Eastern Territory, but I'm still playing Tai Chi with them. Don't pay attention to them. Find an excuse to get away and come directly here. Mei Shifu, Master's wife, Senior Zhang Zijin, Brother Wang Zhen, Miss Lu Qingyi, Daoist Yu Yuqing and Brother Qin Zong are all here, Audiobook said. After saying this, everyone finally understood a little. Lotus Sun instantly understood, and an enlightened expression appeared on her face. Senior Zhua, could it be that this great West Emperor is also? At that moment, Audiobook smiled. That's right. This West Great Emperor is actually Senior Li Xian. Brother Qin Zong and I didn't do anything else in the past few days in the Eternal World except make calls through this communication crystal ball. In the end, we didn't expect each call to be accurate. Hearing this, everyone was even more shocked. Lotus Sun, then the other two emperors, Master's wife, you're right. The other two emperors are also our people. North Emperor is Brother Xiang Yi, and the only female emperor, South Emperor, is Senior Golden Lamp. Senior Golden Lamp, don't worry, they're all very good at acting. After all, Senior Golden Lamp had the experience of being a woman in several reincarnations. He's more than enough to play an empress. That is to say, apart from Brother Gu Xuanji, we found everyone else who has transmigrated to the Eternal World. No, there's still Ing-er isn't with me. Oh, I see. Don't worry, Master's wife, I haven't finished calling my contacts yet. Later, I'll have Senior Qin Zong stand on the side and call a few more. Chapter 1884. Wang Ying also knew that Sun Yinger had disappeared. Although he didn't show it on the surface, he had already secretly activated Shadow Dao's sensing ability to sense her many times. But for some reason, after coming to this Eternal World, the connection between him and Sun Yinger had been completely cut off, and there was no sign of any connection at all. Wang Ying was sure that this wasn't a problem with Shadow Dao. After all, the connection between him and Wang Ling was still there, which meant that Shadow Dao was operating normally. But why couldn't he sense Sun Yinger? Wang Ying felt that there might be some other reason behind this. Fortunately, the good news was that of the four emperors who currently controlled the Eternal World, East Emperor was jointly controlled by Wang Ling and Wang Ling, while the other three emperors were on his side. In addition, Audiobook was playing the role of Lu Mukin, who controlled the strongest intelligence network in the Eternal World. As long as they worked together, it wouldn't be difficult to find a specific person, even if it was like looking for a needle in a haystack. They just needed to use their respective forces to send out the appropriate signal across the universe. Of course, the most important prerequisite for this was that Sun Yinger had to respond to him. For example, Wang Ling had used a hint at the auction house earlier to get in touch with Qin Zong, Lu Qingyi, and Yu Yuqing. While waiting for the rest of his partners to arrive at Chunlan Building, Wang Ying clearly felt uneasy. President Ying, are you worried about Ying-er? Lotus Sun was happy to see this. She thought this would be a very good demonstration, especially for Wang Ling, and would be of great reference value. But while the demonstration was a classic, so was the tsundere. Wang Ying snorted and crossed his arms with East Emperor's body as he said coldly, who's worried about her? It wasn't easy for her to hide in this eternal world. Now that she doesn't have to be under my control, I'm afraid she can't wait to be happy. Although Wang Ying's tsundere wasn't as exaggerated as Ryoko Kamiya's, he had his own unique side. Lotus Sun thought that this might be the legendary contrasting cuteness. After all, Wang Ying indeed didn't have the word cute in him. President Ing, it's not good to lie. Don't you want to find her? It's best if I can't find her. Otherwise, I'll have to find her every night and make her back hurt. When everyone heard this, they couldn't help but gasp. Those who didn't know the truth felt that this sentence seemed to contain a lot of information. The master hadn't even started yet, but the shadows were progressing at a godly speed. They were already so lovey-dovey. This. What a scandal. Perhaps CEO Ing is right. Without Ing around, you really don't have to worry. But apart from Ing, I'm afraid no one can withstand your planetary blockbuster spell, Lotus Sun said again. This time, she chose to retreat in order to advance. Wang Ying was as stubborn as ever, refusing to admit that he wanted to find Sun Yinger. Even if I, Wang Ying, am scolded to death, I will die outside. He would never think about anything related to this fellow. She's the master of the void. Why should I worry? What a joke. The short conversation between the two echoed in the space, and no one could interrupt. The rest of the people just watched silently. From beginning to end, Lotus Sun's gaze never stopped on the East Great Emperor, causing his hair to stand on end. But the person she really cared about wasn't East Great Emperor, but Wang Ling. She really wanted to know how much Wang Ling had comprehended from it. There's always a way. At that moment, Wang Jin said weakly to comfort everyone, and I think that it doesn't matter even if we don't find her. As long as we finish this plot, it means that our mission is over. Once it's over, everyone who transmigrated from the modern era to eternity will be able to go back together, right? In theory, that's true, but there's always the what if, Audjwa said. Audjwa said, in short, it's naturally the best if we can find everyone. Brother Wang Zhen, don't worry too much. Don't worry, before the script is over, you definitely won't have a child. After all, you haven't been pregnant for long, and you haven't taken any elixirs to accelerate your pregnancy, so there shouldn't be any problems. Wang Zhen immediately blushed at Audjwa's words. Let me be clear, I'm not doing this for myself, I know, we all understand. Audjwa stretched out his hand and patted him on the shoulder. If it were me, I would also panic. So when it comes to this, we have to learn from Senior Golden Lamp. Why? Do you think Senior Golden Lamp never experienced childbirth when he chose to be a woman in his countless reincarnations? Following Audjwa's nonsense, the scene fell deathly silent. On the other side, Sun Yinger was also in despair. How could she not want to get in touch with the main force as soon as possible? But there was nothing Sun Yinger could do now. She screamed and roared in her heart thousands of times, hoping that someone here would discover her existence sooner. But what made Sun Yinger even more desperate was that she couldn't make a sound in her current state. Most importantly, the binding between them had failed, and Wang Ying couldn't use Shadow Dao to sense her existence. This idiot! How could such a cunning and quick-witted person like him not discover her existence? She had thought that after being tortured by Wang Ying's planet-drumming spell countless times, the two of them should have a very good rapport with each other. Who would have thought that it would actually fail at this critical moment? Sun Yinger's heart was filled with sorrow. Of course, after thinking about it carefully, she felt that she couldn't completely blame Wang Ying for not being able to discover her. After all, no one would have thought that she was so far away, yet right in front of their eyes. That was right. After coming to Immemorial, the character she had transmigrated into was the child in the belly of the Holy Stone Church's Holy Virgin, played by Wang Zhen. At first, Sun Yinger hadn't realized this, and thought that she had just been trapped by some array. But Lu Qingyi's slap on Wang Zhen after she saw him had directly jolted her awake, so at that moment, Sun Yinger's heart was on the verge of collapse. She was really too miserable. What a scam. Why did other people transmigrate into Immemorial and act as emperors? Goddess. A filthy rich second generation. At the very least, she was a maid at His Highness's side. She was just a baby who couldn't move a thing and had zero fighting strength. Sun Yinger realized that she really had a mental breakdown. The point was that she was really scared. If the plot was over and no one found her, would she return to the modern world with everyone? If she was unfortunately left alone in Immemorial, how would she go back? Chapter 1885. Perhaps even the boss of Chunlan Building himself didn't expect to receive such a big deal today, even though he had already gone out to enjoy himself after receiving the booking fee. East Great Emperor had directly given him enough money to rebuild Chunlan Building. Even if East Great Emperor demolished the place during the negotiations, the boss wouldn't complain at all. But Chunlan Building was essentially a place for male and female cultivators of the eternal world to have fun, and it was also the place where the most courtesans and grass bosses gathered in the entire Central Region's trading star system. And it was in this place of debauchery, filled with all kinds of dazzling illusions and extravagance, that a shocking secret meeting of the four emperors was about to take place, which was something that most cultivators throughout the ages would never have imagined. Because of the gathering of the four emperors, the other three emperors weren't far from the central trade star. Following Audiobook's signal to assemble, three cloaked men quickly arrived at Spring Orchid Building, wrapped tightly in cloaks. Wang Ling didn't even need to sense them to know that they were the remaining three emperors. Even if their figures were hidden extremely well by their cloaks, he could still sense that they were extraordinary from their imposing auras. In the communication crystal ball earlier, Audiobook had already hinted that they needed to help Wang Ling hide his identity, so when the three of them came up, they respectfully lined up in front of East Great Emperor. After putting on a good show, they respectfully and humbly bowed in unison. This humble monk is Jin Deng, Xiang Yi, Li Xian, greetings, Senior Wang. It had to be said that monk Jin Deng indeed looked very familiar with controlling this body of an empress. It didn't feel like a man at all, and instead embodied the charm of an empress to the fullest. The only thing that was out of place was that he still retained the habit of being a monk. As everyone knew, although monk Jin Deng had been a woman, he was overall still a decent monk. Reincarnation was nothing more than his daily work as a supreme Buddhist saint, and there was nothing to make a fuss about. It was just that East Great Emperor was now thinking about this name carefully, and it suddenly dawned on him. When he had heard Audiobook call out Golden Lamp's name before, he had felt that it sounded very familiar. Now that monk Golden Lamp used the term "this poor monk" to introduce himself, East Great Emperor immediately came back to his senses. So it's you. After so many years, I didn't expect to see East Great Emperor's charm again after such a long time. This humble monk is very lucky. Monk Jin Deng performed a Buddhist salute in the Empress's body and then sat down cross-legged. Jin Deng, I didn't expect it to really be you. I thought it was just a coincidence. East Great Emperor was shocked. Who would have thought that this Jin Deng was actually the monk Jin Deng? Not only had this monk lived into the modern cultivation world. Not only that, Jin Great Emperor, but he was also one of the best. For a moment, the Great East Emperor had mixed feelings. Although Golden Lamp Monk's strength was not as heaven-defying as it was now, he was still one of the most talented players. He was once considered a strong competitor for the throne of the Great Emperor. With everyone assembled, Wang Ying scanned the area in front of him and nodded in satisfaction. He then began to convey Wang Ling's message on his behalf. I believe that everyone is clear about what to do next. The situation is urgent. What we need to do now is to put this section of history back on the right track. Understood. The other three emperors nodded at the same time. They were all old acquaintances in their bodies, so there was no problem communicating at all. Lastly, about the reward for the successful completion of this mission. At that moment, Wang Ying spoke. In theory, most of the people here were now members of Battle Sect. Although Xiang Yi and Qin Zong were temporary guest officials and elders, they were in fact still part of the official establishment. Generally speaking, Battle Sect would assign a difficulty rating based on the mission, with the lowest being D, followed by C, B, A, S, SS, and the highest being SSS. Battle Sect would then organize teams based on the difficulty of the mission, and finally give a score of 10 points based on the completion of the mission as well as the performance of all the mission executors during the execution of the mission. During the mission, if the score was less than 6, it meant that you didn't have an outstanding overall performance, and you would only get a portion of the mission points, which would be accumulated and exchanged for corresponding items in Battle Sect's treasury. Scores above 6 were completely different. Furthermore, if the difficulty of the mission was high, the reward would also be very amazing. Wang Ling wasn't a stingy person, although he knew very well that as long as he said the word, everyone would do their best. But sometimes, a proper reward was still necessary. This is a temporary mission, and the difficulty of this mission is the highest since the founding of our sect, SSS. All core members of Battle Sect with a score of 6 and above can choose a magic treasure of their choice from the King's treasure pants, Wang Ying said straightforwardly as he conveyed Wang Ling's meaning. Everyone's eyes instantly lit up. Wang Ling didn't think much of the things in Wang Zhibao's pants, but for everyone here, every item inside was a treasure that people would scramble to get their hands on. Of course, it was usually grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and the elders of Battle Sect who would hold a meeting to discuss and decide how to grade disciples for sect missions. Occasionally, some sect disciples would deliberately curry favor with some elders to cover up their poor performance in missions, which would make things a little unfair. This was in fact a very serious violation of the rules, and if it was found out, there would be very severe punishments. If it was more severe, they might be directly expelled from Battle Sect. But with Wang Ling supervising the entire operation this time, there was absolutely no objection to this mission. Ling Zhenren personally grading the mission was absolutely fair and just. So the problem now was how they could set up a trap to lure Ping Shiren out. Given Ping Shiren's cautious character, if East Great Emperor didn't reveal any flaws, he definitely wouldn't try to snatch the Book of 9 Realms. But if he deliberately revealed a flaw, it would be too obvious, which would instead make Ping Shiren suspicious. At that moment, the 4 emperors had gathered together in a secret meeting, and all the networks and intelligence networks of the entire world were gathered here. Very quickly, Xiang Yi, who was playing the role of North Emperor, suddenly said, "That's right, there seems to be something like this in North Emperor's memories. I remember that the Ping family is looking for a son-in-law. And the person they're looking for is Ping Shiren's younger sister, Ping Basin, so I think it would be better." After thinking for a bit, Xiang Yi quickly stopped and shook his head. "No, forget it, I won't say it. This can only be considered a bad idea. You can say it first." "It's just a discussion, it's fine," Wang Ying said. Xiang Yi first looked at Lotus Sun, then said a little awkwardly, "What I mean is, since the original copy of the Book of 9 Realms is with Senior Wang, why don't we have him bring the original copy to propose marriage?" Hearing this, everyone was startled at first, and then many of them nodded their heads one after another. "Not bad, this idea doesn't seem too bad," said Li Xian, who was the West Great Emperor. This, how can we do that?" But at that moment, Lotus Sun suddenly stood up agitatedly, her face red. "Absolutely not. It's too dangerous." His anxious look made everyone around him smile knowingly. Looking at Lotus Sun's expression, the corners of Oj's mouth rose wildly, and he simply couldn't stop himself. Then, mistress, what do you want to do? Quick-witted, Lotus Sun patted her chest and said, how about this? Give me the Book of 9 Realms. I'll dress up as a man and propose marriage. The error-free chapters of the daily life of the immortal king will continue to be updated in the popular bar. Everyone, please bookmark and recommend the popular bar. Those who like the daily life of the immortal king, please bookmark. The daily life of the immortal king's popular bar is the fastest to update. Chapter 1886. Under everyone's meaningful gazes, Lotus Sun's face grew redder and redder. To be honest, even she hadn't expected to come up with such a bold and constructive suggestion. In short, anyone could go and propose. East Great Emperor wasn't allowed to go. Even if East Great Emperor was using his own body, he still had Wang Ling and Wang Ying in it. Lotus Sun felt that this was a little strange. She thought that her actions could be regarded as righteous, and not just for her own selfish reasons, but also for Sun Yinger's sake. These two shadows had been lovey-dovey for so long, and were about to succeed. How could she ruin the critical juncture with something like this? That's right. Her suggestion now was generally for the sake of Sun Yinger and Wang Ying's happiness. It had nothing to do with her at all. No. Why do I get the feeling that you're a little anxious? Nonsense. Of course not. Lotus Sun's face grew hotter, and she looked around at the crowd. Am I anxious? Am I anxious? Do I look like I'm anxious? Lu Qingyi patted her on the shoulder and sighed. Don't say it, good disciple, it seems like you are a little. Yu Yuqing also nodded. A little anxious. Seeing everyone's meaningful gazes, Lotus Sun took several deep breaths and tried to regain her composure. Fine, even if I'm a little anxious, this is also for the sake of history returning to the right path. This is for the greater good of all cultivators, it's very normal. As expected of Master's wife, we admire her for being able to uphold the greater good of cultivators in this situation. Hearing this, the corners of Oj's mouth curled up slightly. He couldn't bear to continue leading the crowd and teasing Lotus Sunday. In any case, everyone present was well aware of what her anxious action meant. The only one who didn't understand the situation was that expressionless man hiding in East Great Emperor's body. After all, the Book of 9 Realms was a hot potato in the current situation. Even if it was in East Great Emperor's hands, it might not be safe, let alone in Lotus Sun's hands. But on second thought, he felt that it might be easier to leave this matter to Lotus Sunday. In any case, the course of history was already a mess. It wouldn't matter even if Lotus Sun summoned the mysterious sea. If they really ran into an emergency, with the mysterious sea's protective sword body, Wang Ling didn't think that the Ping family would be a match for the 9 Corps' mysterious sea. Of course, the more important reason was that he thought girls would understand girls better, so it would be very abrupt for a few men to suddenly propose marriage. Lotus Sun's thoughts were a little more meticulous, which might make the whole thing seem even smoother. After deciding on the plan, Lotus Sun heaved a long sigh of relief. Lu Qingyi and Yu Yuqing helped to give Lotus Sun an exquisite makeover, mainly focusing on her skin tone and facial features, so that her originally delicate face now had a more masculine contour. He didn't make too many changes to his hairstyle. He just adjusted the length of his hair so that it fell down naturally. Then, he added some bangs on both sides of his forehead, instantly making him look like a handsome and elegant man. When everyone saw Lotus Sun come out of the room in a pure white man's suit, they couldn't take their eyes off her. Her foundation was excellent to begin with, and even though she had been dressed as a man, she was still stunning. Even East Great Emperor was flabbergasted. Whether it was a man or a woman, such a face could be called an immortal. Even if the 4 great emperors' imperial palaces were full of handsome men and beautiful women, they wouldn't be able to find anyone who couldn't take their eyes off her at first glance. In fact, cross-dressing was the best way to tell whether a person was good or bad. It was true that beauty was in the bones, not the skin. It's feasible. I think it's totally feasible. Bring the Book of 9 Realms and the betrothal gift to propose marriage. I guarantee that Ping Basin will like you at first glance. For some reason, Audra suddenly felt a little excited. After everyone came up with a plan for the marriage proposal, the core members of Battle Sect, who were playing the roles of the 4 great emperors, as well as Lu Mukin's Audra, quickly set up an inescapable net to prepare for the subsequent marriage proposal. Although it was just an act, it was in fact fishing. Since they were going to catch a fish, they naturally had to make all the necessary preparations. The marriage proposal team had to be luxurious and couldn't be lower than the standard of a 9-star imperial family in the eternal cultivation world. Furthermore, the team had to be densely packed with experts, and the lowest realm standard had to be Tao God level. The Sea Calming Pearl, Sky Jade, 8 Desolation Ruler, 9-Faced Lion Heart, a dazzling array of magic treasures and natural treasures formed a long list that stretched as far as the eye could see. This was a list of treasures from the 4 great emperor palaces. Every item was so precious that it was enough to drive the cultivators of the eternal world crazy. But now, these things were going to be the betrothal gift to the Ping family, which made people sigh. The East Great Emperor sweated when he saw this. Isn't this a little overprepared? It's just for show. There's no need for East Emperor to worry. Xiang Yi laughed. In any case, these things aren't ours, so don't worry too much. East Emperor was speechless. What Audra said made so much sense that he was speechless for a moment. Next, they headed straight for the Ping family's headquarters. If it wasn't for the 4 emperors' secret meeting this time, perhaps no one would have known that the Ping family's forces had already spread across the 4 major territories, and that the reason why the Ping family had set up their headquarters in the Central Territory was because it was convenient for trade. On the other hand, it was also because they could control the forces of the 4 territories through this central location, which made it easier for them to distribute the Ping family's spies among the major territories. Although the 4 emperors had sent intelligence personnel to investigate the Ping family before, the information obtained was limited. The universe was so big that the detection of intelligence could not be too obvious, not to mention that this information was not made public. Even though the East Emperor had already judged that the Ping family's power network over the years had probably expanded to an unimaginable level before this secret meeting, when they marked the distribution of the Ping family's major forces as asterisks on the same map, they couldn't help but be shocked. The East Emperor was shocked when he saw the stars all over the map. It seems that the Ping family's ambition is not small. I'm afraid they also have sympathy for the throne, Wang Ying said. East Emperor was also worried about this. The Ping family is too scary. They colluded with the old world. We must not let them seize the general trend. I don't know if we can take this opportunity to suppress them. Wang Ying nodded. Of course. Originally, weakening the Ping family's power was also within our scope, wasn't it? Chapter 1887. Although it was she who had volunteered to dress up as a man to propose marriage, she still couldn't help feeling a little hesitant and nervous when it really came time to do it. After all, a lot of boys didn't have any experience with marriage proposals, let alone a girl like her. And for some reason, she felt that it was a little weird to do it. Her original intention had been to stop Wang Ling from proposing. No. Her original intention had been to keep Sun Yinger and Wang Ying together for the sake of righteousness. But it wasn't Wang Ling who had proposed, but she was the one who was going to get married in the end. She had dug a hole for herself. After realizing this, Lotus Sun even felt a little remorseful, and felt that she had been too rash in the end. Also, this was a serious matter, because the success or failure of the marriage proposal would directly affect the course of human cultivators' history. If anything went wrong, she would be a sinner in history. This heavy pressure made it hard for her to breathe, and she kept taking deep breaths on the way to the Ping family's main residence. Lu Qingyi and Yu Yuqing disguised themselves as maids and stayed by her side. Since King Tianquan wasn't around, they didn't have to force themselves to stay in their snake forms, and directly grew legs to look no different from ordinary people. Why are you getting nervous so close to the end? Lu Qingyi asked with a smile as she comforted her. You don't have to feel too heavy of a burden, it's just an act. Lotus Sun understood that, but it was normal for people to reflect on themselves, and the more outstanding they were, the more it was so. She was so nervous that the muscles in her stomach ached, and she was full of regret. If she had obediently listened to Wang Ling and not intervened in this matter, things might not have come to this. Now that the turning point in history had been handed to her, if she messed it up again, she was really worried that her friendship with Wang Ling would plummet to an all-time low. It hadn't been easy for her and Wang Ling to come into contact with each other at this level. At that moment, Lotus Sun's thoughts were all over the place. As her imagination ran wild, she never thought that the person who would comfort her at that moment would actually be Yu Yuqing, whom she had always been on high alert against. You don't think too much at a time like this. Do you think it's your fault that things have become complicated? All of this was planned, including the fact that you gathered so many people to decipher the mysterious text and accidentally fell into this eternal world. It was all planned. Yu Yuqing looked calmly at Lotus Sun and said, We're actually just pawns used by these seniors in the game. Since he was a chess piece, he just had to follow the plan step by step. Besides, why did Ling Ling agree to let you go? Haven't you considered it at all? Hearing this, Lotus Sun abruptly raised her head, the expression on her face somewhat frozen. Yes, such an important mission was not child's play. Why had Wang Ling so readily agreed to let her do it? At this time, with Yu Yuqing's reminder, Lotus Sun vaguely began to understand. Ling Ling trusts you, that's why he gave you such an important task, Yu Yuqing said to Lotus Sun with a serious expression. At the same time, when she saw Lotus Sun's astonished expression, she couldn't help but feel amused. What? You looked at me in such a shocked manner, thinking that I would go out of my way to comfort you. Is it unbelievable? No. Daoist master, you misunderstood, you're being insincere again. Yu Yuqing laughed and swung her legs in a very relaxed and contented manner. Actually, I already have someone I like. I know. Lotus Sun lowered her head. It's classmate Wang Ling, right? No. Yu Yuqing shook her head like a rattle. This time, both Lotus Sun and Lu Qingyi were astonished. Those birthday presents you showed off earlier were indeed from Wang Ling, but I just wanted to tease you. Yu Yuqing was very straightforward and directly laid her cards on the table. Oh, there was a time when I was a kid when I really liked Ling Ling, but it wasn't until I became a Daoist and grew up that I realized that kind of feeling. It's probably just a sibling relationship, I think it's better for him to be my older brother. Then the person Daoist master you likes? Lu Qingyi suddenly asked. Perhaps realizing that she was being too nosy, she quickly waved her hand. It's fine, Daoist master you. It's fine even if you don't tell me, I'm just curious. Yu Yuqing blinked, her eyes sparkling beautifully. When the time comes, I'll naturally tell you. But Ling Ling isn't bad. If I'm rejected in the end, maybe I can use him as a spare tire. Lotus Sun and Yu Yuqing, spare tire. Yu Yuqing's eyes curved into crescents as she laughed again. You guys can't handle this. AI, how boring. This rather sincere exchange did indeed ease the tension in Lotus Sun's heart a lot. She had a vague feeling that Yu Yuqing's identity wasn't as simple as it seemed. At least for now, in Lotus Sun's eyes, Yu Yuqing really was very mysterious. The Ping family's headquarters was set up on Penglai planet in the central region of the galaxy. This was a dangerous place surrounded by many celestial bodies that contained powerful cosmic energy, and cultivators who passed by were swept up in them from time to time. The Ping family's headquarters here could be said to be like a fortress, easy to defend and difficult to attack. To the outside world, Penglai Planet belonged to everyone, but almost all the businesses on it were related to the Ping family. This was an empire that belonged solely to the Ping family. The Ping family's headquarters on Penglai Planet was a golden palace with richly carved beams and painted rafters. There were even quite a few carvings of creatures that didn't belong to the ancient cultivation world. These were the carvings of ancient creatures from the ancient world, which the Ping family had grandly carved into the walls as murals. It was clear that the Ping family's arrogance had reached a shocking level. At the border of Penglai Planet, as Lotus Sun and the others' carriages passed by, a group of ancient city guards quickly surrounded them on disc-shaped magic artifacts. These neutral guards, who had originally been brought together by the 4 great emperors of the 4 regions to maintain the stability of the Central Region galaxy, had now become the targets of the Ping family's instigation. East Great Emperor was very dissatisfied with this. Holding his breath, he looked at the group of Penglai Planet's ancient city guards and asked them in a very arrogant manner, "Who are you? What are you doing here? Do you know what kind of place Penglai Planet is? I remember that the Central Region galaxy isn't under the jurisdiction of any power." East Great Emperor said indifferently as he stared at the ancient city guards in front of him, his expression fearless. "Today, I brought my family's young master to Penglai Planet to propose marriage." Propose marriage? One of the ancient city guards smiled, extremely curious. "Everyone here is from the Ping family. Who can you go to propose marriage to? I remember that this isn't something a guard like you should be asking." East Great Emperor did his best to restrain his temper. "If you don't tell us why you're here, we won't let you pass." The guard crossed his arms and laughed wildly. But very quickly, his smile froze in the next second. Chapter 1888. Relying on their status on Penglai, the Ping family was so powerful that even the ancient city guards had been assimilated. They were fierce, chivalrous, and extremely arrogant. It could be seen from their attitude toward outsiders that the carriage Wang Ling and the others were in had a clear 9-star imperial family symbol, symbolizing that the people in the carriage were direct descendants of some great emperor. Even so, this group of assimilated ancient city guards didn't take them seriously. They were completely unreasonable and looked down on this group of great emperors. Such an arrogant attitude undoubtedly made the great East sovereign very angry. He instinctively wanted to slap this guard in the face. But just as he raised his hand, Wang Ying forcibly controlled his body and held him down. "Just use your aura to intimidate them. If you slap them, this guard will die. It won't be good for our subsequent plans." As soon as he finished speaking, his aura was transmitted at the same time. Wang Ying had only released a little spiritual pressure, but the expressions of this group of ancient city guards instantly changed dramatically, and they could no longer laugh. As if they had been petrified, they stood where they were and didn't dare move at all. "They're done. Their realm will stop here for the rest of their lives, and they won't advance any further," Monk Jin Deng said at that moment, having seen some clues. This wasn't just an ordinary aura deterrence. At the same time, some nomological curses had been added to make these arrogant ancient city guards receive the most terrifying punishment as a cultivator. To them, this was a punishment that was far more miserable than death. Even so, East Great Emperor was still depressed. "These people eat the public grain of our 4 territories, but they betray their master for glory. They really can't be punished." It was hard to imagine that East Great Emperor, who had always been gentle and kind among the 4 emperors, could be so furious. If the other emperors hadn't been possessed by outsiders, it was likely that these ancient city guards would have died as well. As if expecting this reaction from East Great Emperor, Wang Ying said indifferently, "The environment can change people. Vanity, privilege, and everything that can tarnish the human heart may make these people think that they are superior to others, and thus completely forget that they are just dust in this world." Everyone sank into deep thought at Wang Ying's words, and even Wang Ling was a little surprised. he had never thought that his own shadow could actually think so deeply. Sometimes, he would think about what the essence of cultivation was, and occasionally weave a few golden sentences in his mind. However, he had never shared these words with anyone else. This was because he realized that there were too few people who could truly understand him, or rather, they simply didn't exist. The loneliness of being at the top could only be described as, "It's too cold at the top." The Yeast Great Emperor tried hard to calm himself down. In the end, he listened to Wang Ying's words obediently and did not kill these ancient city guards in front of him. Of course, although Wang Ying's curse was real, it didn't give the ancient city guards a chance. If they can come to their senses in this life and rein in the horse before the precipice, this curse will naturally be lifted. Unfortunately, they've already sunk too deep. Wang Ying sighed. What on earth did the Ping family instill in them? Lu Qingyi looked at these petrified ancient city guards and felt it was a great pity. They had cultivated for more than 1,000 years, and had originally been chosen to guard an ancient city in a central region. If they could wait until the handover and return to their respective armies, they would definitely have boundless prospects in the future. But who would have thought that these people would choose to court death on this day? It could only be said that this was a kind of destiny. A number of carriages bearing the mark of the 9-star imperial family finally landed outside Pinglai City. The spirit light from the Ping family's bejeweled main residence reached the sky even through the city walls. Looking down from the sky, this golden residence had been shocking, and now that they saw it face to face, they felt the Ping family's domineering nature even more. Wang Ling and the others wanted to park the carriages directly in front of the Ping family's main residence, but they couldn't stop on such a wide street. It was only when they approached Pinglai City that they noticed the luxurious carriages and all kinds of divine beasts lined up in an orderly manner in front of the Ping family's main residence. What's going on? There's a traffic jam in the eternal world. In the Pegasus carriage, Lotus Sun frowned. I'll go and ask. Zhang Zide immediately got out of the carriage and used the spirit stones he had prepared as a tip. He casually grabbed a passing rogue cultivator and asked him. After receiving a large sum of money for the inquiry, the rogue cultivator's unhappy expression at being stopped instantly smoothed out. It's like this, these carriages are all here to propose marriage. I don't think you're also here to propose marriage, are you? So many, to propose marriage. Everyone was astonished. This was the information they had received after integrating the intelligence network of the 4 emperors, and was probably first-hand information. But no one would have thought that the marriage proposals had actually already begun. Furthermore, there was a long line in front of the Ping family's main residence. Zhang Zide instantly understood. The only possibility was that the Ping family had spread the news locally and started to openly recruit people. But this made things completely different. No matter how big the local families on Pinglai were, they couldn't be as big as the Ping family, so the son-in-law they found definitely couldn't compare to the Ping family in terms of family background. At most, he would be a live-in son-in-law. Furthermore, he wouldn't be the Dragon King's live-in son-in-law. This astonished everyone on Wang Ling's side. This Ping Basin was the daughter of the Ping family. Why would she find a live-in son-in-law who didn't match their family background? How anxious was she to get herself married off? Miss Peng is a very eccentric person, and this marriage proposal was her idea to begin with. Lord Ping especially dotes on her, so Miss Peng practically handles everything herself. This passerby rogue cultivator looked like he was watching a melon. If Miss Peng takes a fancy to anyone, whether it's an official marriage or a live-in son-in-law, it's a supreme honor. Once you're on the Ping family's big boat, you definitely won't lack cultivation resources in the future. What else do you know? Zhang Zide asked as he gave him another bag of spirit stones. The passerby rogue cultivator nodded with a satisfied expression. I advise you to leave. This Miss Peng is a very lustful person. Although it'll be very touching to be on the Ping family's boat, she might overdraw her kidneys. Overdraw her kidneys. Lustful. Why do you think so? Because I heard that Miss Ping isn't just going to marry a live-in son-in-law today. This long line is to recruit a harem for herself. How many have you chosen so far? Not yet, because the requirements are too high. The passerby rogue cultivator sighed. Ha ha ha, I was just watching the fun. There was a guy called Kushuan who was rejected by Miss Peng. She said that his kidneys weren't good. Chapter 1889. As it turned out, it wasn't as easy to maintain order nowadays as the internet made it out to be. Even choosing a son-in-law had to be done according to the basic rules. The eldest daughter of the Peng family was a pearl in the palm of the Peng family's hand. Although grandfather Peng had given the right to choose his future son-in-law to eldest Miss Peng, he had certainly given her the lowest standards. According to that itinerant cultivator, the old man had formulated very strict regulations on the virtues of a son-in-law. Take the initiative to inform your wife or family members of any cultivation activities or cultivation gatherings, and apply no later than sunset. Under no circumstances are you allowed to drink or indulge in alcohol. If you meet someone who urges you to drink, you must immediately stay away from them, break off relations with them, and never associate with them again. If necessary, you can directly draw your sword and kill them. In public, under no circumstances are you allowed to eat anything that smells too strong or to smoke. You must remain quiet and constantly remind yourself that you are a quiet and handsome man. You must not wear revealing clothes. You can't wear a vest or sleeveless shirt, or wear shorts that go above your knees, and you can't go bare-chested. At the same time, you should always pay attention to your personal appearance at home. You must walk properly. When you walk, your back must be straight and your gaze forward, and your eyes must be firm and aboveboard. You mustn't sneak a peek at other women, and you must maintain a kind of awe-inspiring righteousness at all times. Your steps must be just right, and can't be outward or inward. Before you are officially married, you are absolutely not allowed to have sex before marriage. Furthermore, you are not allowed to be alone with the opposite sex or spend the night outside, not even if it's necessary for business. Because business in the cultivation world requires dual cultivation. You must report to your wife in advance before you buy anything worth more than 500 mixed spirit stones. If you don't have money, you can ask your wife, and she will provide you with a loan depending on the situation. The annualized rate depends on the situation, and can range from 8% to 999%. If the person is good-looking and meets all the other requirements, you can ignore all the above male virtues regulations. Seeing this, everyone couldn't help sucking in breaths of cold air and sighing heavily. No one thought that this eldest Miss Peng's father would actually be so honest. Good heavens, it's too hard to ask for direct conditions. I can't do it even if I'm so well behaved. As someone who already had a partner, Wang Zhen felt very sad about this. He even felt that this journey of eternity was already a very bad example for Lu Qingyi. What if Lu Qingyi imitated these men's ethics rules after he went back and made a new version of modern cultivation men's ethics rules for him? He really wouldn't be able to live on then. Seeing Wang Zhen's fearful expression, Lu Qingyi was very satisfied. Given her outstanding training skills, even if she didn't use these rules to restrain Wang Zhen, he would definitely be a good man who abided by male ethics. The most important reason was that Wang Zhen was timid. To put it bluntly, he didn't have the courage to challenge his wife's bottom line. The most, he was that out that out that out out that out out that out that out to him out to him, and out to out to. This out that, this to. After standing there in a daze for a long while, he hurriedly drove his spirit sword away. This was too frightening. Even with his experience, he had never seen two women so intimate in the eternal world. Thus, this itinerant cultivator left as if he was fleeing. In the process, he seemed to think of something embarrassing, and he couldn't help blushing. These were two women. It turned out that two women could do it. He felt that he was too inexperienced. In contrast, he felt that his friend, who had trained his little female cat to cultivate into a beautiful human girl and then married him, was a lot more normal. As if they could hear this cultivator's thoughts, the corners of Wang Ling's and Wang Ying's mouths twitched at the same time. Marrying a female cat that he had trained into a beautiful human girl, this was obviously even more outrageous. At that moment, Wang Ling's heart was crumbling. Looking at the long queue in front of him, he couldn't help feeling a deep sense of despair. At this rate, the sun would be setting by the time they arrived. Furthermore, it seemed that the Ping family's headquarters had come up with a limit on numbers, which was to say that they might not even get a chance to propose today. Fortunately, because of Zhang Zipei, East Great Emperor now had a lot of funds at his disposal. As long as he had enough money, he could buy the number of the person in front of him. "Brother, our master is in a hurry. I wonder if you can be magnanimous?" Zhang Zipei asked on his behalf with a smile on his face. The person in front of them was also a noble young master. He looked elegant and seemed to be easy to talk to. However, in the eyes of the Ping family's headquarters, he was nothing more than a live-in son-in-law. "Who are you? You want to cut the line?" "I won't cut the line for free, I'll pay you. As long as you let us swap places, we're willing to pay you 500,000 Chaos Spirit Stones as a token of our gratitude," Zhang Zipei said, holding out a palm. The person in the carriage seemed to have heard Zhang Zipei's voice, and after hesitating for a moment, he decided to swap places. After all, whether or not he could become a live-in son-in-law was still a question, but 500,000 Chaos Spirit Stones was real money. After swapping places with satisfaction, the elegant young master in the carriage smiled at Wang Ling's carriage. "Brother, let me give you a piece of advice, money is useless. If this Miss Peng doesn't like you, you'll become a live-in son-in-law at most. How many people have been rejected before you? I think Miss Peng's standards are too high, and normal people won't like her. Then why did you come to line up?" Zhang Zipei snickered. The young master smiled. "Just think of it as a lottery ticket. What if I win? That's endless glory and wealth. This Ping family's headquarters has quite a background now. Everyone says that old Master Peng will be the future fifth emperor." As soon as he said this, the elegant young master's expression changed dramatically as he suddenly felt a huge chill coming from the carriage in front of him. It was the pressure of East Great Emperor, which immediately scared the elegant young master into silence, and he didn't dare speak at all. Just like that, Zhang Zipei spent money to buy places, and soon led Wang Ling, Lotus Sun, and the others to the main gate of the Ping family's headquarters. A steward of the Ping family's headquarters stepped forward. He was dressed in luxurious silk clothes, and even the patterns on them were embroidered with gold. When he saw Wang Ling and Lotus Sun's convoy, he didn't care about the 9-star imperial family emblem at all, and asked in a lazy and arrogant tone, "Who are you? Tell me your name." Chapter 1890. Wang Ling could see that the pattern on this steward's body wasn't from the eternal world, but was clearly the mark of the old world. At the bottom of the pattern was a surging wave woven from golden immortals and blue silk threads. Several tentacles from the old world poked out of the surface of the sea in a strange, beautiful arc. Wang Ling was all too familiar with these tentacles from the old world, because not long ago, he had hunted down a few tentacle-like creatures from Dopey from the old world for newborn Wang Yuan to satisfy her hunger. Such unbridled behavior was enough to show how overbearing and rampant the Ping family was on Ping Lai. There was only a bit of time left before the sun completely set. Wang Ling, Lotus Sun, and the others had bribed everyone along the way to make it to the last round of interviews for the day. Looking at the time, a lot of people knew that they were the last group of people for the day. But the people behind them didn't immediately disperse, even though they knew that they wouldn't be able to make it today. The young talents who had come to propose got out of their cars one after another, intending to join in on the fun. After all, the last person to be interviewed was a nouveau riche who had bribed his way to the front with money. A lot of people wanted to see the Ping family pour cold water on this nouveau riche. There was a huge gap between the rich and the poor in the eternal world, but there were still plenty of rich people. Given the Ping family's status on Penglai, ordinary nouveau riche definitely wouldn't be interested in them. So when Wang Ling and the others arrived, this steward's expression didn't look good. He had been observing Wang Ling and the others' motorcade for a long time. They had actually bribed their way here with money. Just as the housekeeper of the Ping family revealed a look of disdain, Zhang Zibai took a step forward and took out a jade box from his sleeve. He pretended to respectfully open the jade box and handed it to the housekeeper with both hands. "Hello, housekeeper. My young master is here to propose marriage and hopes that housekeeper can lead the way. This is a small token of my appreciation, I hope you won't mind." The steward's disdain didn't diminish, and he smiled contemptuously. Did they think his Ping family was a vegetarian? He hated this kind of nouveau riche the most. He was the dignified steward of the Ping family, and he was a somewhat famous figure on Penglai who didn't care how many rich people there were. A mere extraterrestrial nouveau riche actually dared to stand in front of him. Wait. This was, at first, he did not look carefully at the contents of the box. After a glance, he realized that it was an elixir, and it was no ordinary elixir. When the elixir in the jade box emitted a dazzling luster, the Ping clan's general manager's hand speed was extremely fast. He immediately closed the lid of the jade box. This alertness was actually because he didn't want the treasures and pills in the box to be seen by other busybodies. As the steward of the Ping family, his eyes were extremely sharp. He clearly knew that this was an ancestral Tao pill. This was a rare medicinal pill for breaking through to the Tao Father realm. Only great emperors could refine it. In reality, among the people who came to propose today, there were indeed many who came in the name of the 3-star, 6-star, or 9-star imperial family. However, it was the first time that the Ping family's chief steward had seen someone who used the Tao Ancestor pill as a stepping stone. Although he didn't like this nouveau riche in front of him, he couldn't help feeling a little hesitant in the face of this Tao Ancestor pill. For him, this kind of greeting gift was like giving him a pillow when he was sleepy. He had been stuck at the Tao God realm for a long time, and was just a step away from breaking through to Tao Ancestor. However, he had always lacked comprehension. If he didn't break through with external help, he was afraid that his realm would stop here for the rest of his life. In the next moment, his expression softened a little as he personally accepted the jade box and stepped aside. "Young master, you're too polite. I will kindly accept this gift. Please come in, young master, but there are still a few more tests. If you can pass all of them, you can officially marry my family's young lady. If you can't, young master, you can consider becoming a son-in-law or directly leave." Understood. Inside the carriage, Lotus Sun took a deep breath and stepped out of the exclusive royal carriage of the 9-star imperial family under everyone's gazes. To tell the truth, she didn't feel any stage fright. Before she had fallen in love with Wang Ling and learned to keep a low profile, she had once enjoyed being the center of attention. But now, it could only be said that she had returned to her old profession. As the future young master of Huaguo Water Curtain Group, she had an innate ability to control the overall situation and confidence. This kind of bearing couldn't be considered ordinary. Coupled with the exquisite makeup that Lu Qingyi and Yu Yuqing had put on Lotus Sun, her immortal aptitude was already enough to stun everyone present. Which territory is this imperial family from? How come I've never seen this person before? Look at the patterns on his body, which combine the styles of the 4 territories. He definitely has an extraordinary background. Maybe he's favored by all 4 emperors at the same time. My God, there's someone like this in the world. The busybodies on the street who had joined in on the fun immediately started talking among themselves. To be honest, when he saw Lotus Sun in person, even the director of the Ping family was stunned for a moment. He believed himself to be very knowledgeable and knew almost all the famous families in the 4 regions, but he didn't remember such a person at all. To have the patterns of the 4 territories directly tattooed on the same robe, this alone was enough to prove that this person's identity was no small matter. Before young master enters, please tell me who you are. My name is Wang Rongxia, Lotus Sun answered without hesitation. Her identity was completely fake, and had been created by the core members of the battle sect who had impersonated the 4 emperors, so everything about this fake identity had been done flawlessly. Lotus Sun had already thought of a fake name. This was made up of the name of the character she had impersonated, Xia Xinyan, the homonym of her own name, and the surname of the person she liked. Wang Rongxia. The director of the Ping family carefully chewed on this name and began to do a carpet search in his mind, but it was as if he had lost his memory and couldn't remember anything. No matter how much he rummaged through the memories of those prestigious families, he couldn't find such a person. Of course, he also began to suspect that Lotus Sun was a fake identity. But even if it was a fake identity, the price to pay was a little too high. A Dao ancestor pill as a stepping stone. What kind of wealth was this? It didn't seem fake at all, thus, the steward of the Ping family finally didn't stop her, and welcomed her in. So it's young master Wang Rongxia. Please come in, young master. In any case, there were still a few more tests, and he didn't think Lotus Sun would be able to pass them. The person in charge of the first test was a middle-aged man who looked like a scholar. He sat in front of a table and propped up his chin with his fingers crossed as he looked at Lotus Sunday. Sweeping a glance at the chair in front of the table, he smiled meaningfully. Young master, please take a seat. If you want to marry my family's young miss, the first test is a discussion of Tao. Okay. Lotus Sun nodded. Back in the carriage, East Great Emperor had already guessed this part. The middle-aged man nodded, then began to ask, there are countless paths of cultivation. May I ask, young master, how should you find your own path? Lotus Sun thought for a moment, then answered, there are no paths in this world, but when there are people, there are paths. As soon as she said this, the whole audience burst into thunderous applause. The middle-aged man was clearly stunned when he heard this. Good answer, young master. Then may I ask, if someone is unable to break through after a long time and can't feel any hope, what would you think? Hope is attached to existence. With existence, there is hope, and with hope, there is light. Good, easy to understand. The middle-aged man was already completely stupefied. He scratched his head, then continued to ask, may I ask, young master, how do you understand life and death? Lotus Sun, dead life has already decayed. I am very happy with this decay, because I know that it isn't empty. The middle-aged man was shocked. Young master is so young, how can you say such a thing? Lotus Sun smiled. Is this also a question? The middle-aged man shook his head. No, it's just a personal question. Young master, you don't have to answer. Lotus Sun said, it's all because my master taught me well. The middle-aged man, may I ask, who is young master's master? Which sect is he from? Lotus Sun smiled. I don't belong to any sect, and people call me Brother Sun. Chapter 1891. Wednesday, January 7th, Wang Ling and Lotus Sun didn't return all night and didn't report to school the next day, which attracted the attention of the two families. Sun Yiyuan paced around anxiously. He only had one granddaughter, but she disappeared without a trace. Most importantly, as far as Sun Yiyuan knew, Lotus Sun had always been extremely obedient and well-behaved, so there was no way she would disappear for no reason. Now that she had disappeared, however, Sunny Yuan began to feel a strong sense of crisis. The incident with the Shadow Stream killers last year was still vivid in his mind as if it had happened yesterday. His heart was a mess and he didn't know what to do at the moment. He had called Odd Zhua and found that he had also disappeared. Using his connections, he had finally found Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Senior Immortal, I only have one granddaughter. You have to tell me the truth, do you really not know where she went? Sunny Yuan paced back and forth in front of Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's desk in the head of Battle Sec's office with his hands clasped behind his back. He was sweating profusely because of his ancestral imagination genes, and he was thinking of a lot of terrible things. Don't worry, old man, I've already sent people to look for her. Miss Sun is naturally safe and sound, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said reassuringly. In fact, he was also privy to this matter. How could he, as the head of Battle Sect, not know where so many core members had been mobilized? As for why they hadn't returned overnight, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's guess was that they might have run into some trouble, so he had called Wang Ling last night and realized that he couldn't get through to him. Thus, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's guess was that Wang Ling had to be with this group of people on a similar mission. So with Wang Ling around, there was no need to panic at all, it was only a matter of time before they were dealt with. They just needed to be patient and wait for them to reply on their own. Senior Immortal, do you have any basis for this? My Rong isn't even at the Golden Core stage. In this big world, it's too easy for Foundation establishment cultivators to get into accidents. If someone bullies her, or... Just as Sunny Yuan was thinking of something even more terrifying, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal hurriedly interrupted him. Old man, don't think too much, he sighed in his heart. It was only because Old Man Sun didn't know Lotus Sun's true battle strength that there were a lot of things that he couldn't explain clearly. A Foundation establishment cultivator was being bullied. Of course I don't exist, your granddaughter has Ling Zhenren's backing, it's already good enough that she doesn't bully others. This was the #1 Foundation establishment stage cultivator on Earth. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal could still vividly remember how he had cut down the old god of the god race with one slash back then. Back then, it hadn't even reached the level of 9 cores Mysterious Sea. Now, the Mysterious Sea had 9 Heaven's Path magic cubes fused into it. It was practically unstoppable. However, when he answered the phone earlier, he had already expected that Grandpa's son would do this, so he had already thought of a way to comfort him. After fiddling with it for a bit, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal took something out of his sleeve. It was a Dao talisman that contained enormous spirit power, and Sunny Yuan's eyes immediately lit up. This is, Death Substitute Talisman. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said. Actually, this was the surplus that Wang Ling had asked the 2 Life and Death Heavenly Dao brothers to set up last time. It was just that he was now using it as an excuse to comfort someone. He said, I came across this by chance and wanted to give it to Miss Sun as a gift. But Miss Sun wouldn't accept it, so I thought of a way to secretly bind it to her. In other words, the owner of this Death Substitute Talisman is Miss Sunday. The Death Substitute Talisman hasn't been activated yet, which proves that Miss Sun is definitely safe. We just need to increase our search and wait for a reply. Hearing this, Sunny Yuan finally let out a long sigh of relief. That's good, his nerves eased, and he even forgot to ask about the true origin of this Death Substitute Talisman. After all, it was almost impossible to find anyone in this world who had the ability to draw this kind of Dao talisman. Looking at Sunny Yuan's relieved expression, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had mixed feelings in his heart. Looking up at the sky, he felt that Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch, whom he had sent out earlier, should already have news from Wang Ling. As a real clone, Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch's thoughts and consciousness were completely independent, but he could still sense the original body. Thus, he had very easily found the apartment building where Li Xian lived, and from the security guard at the entrance, he had more or less guessed what had happened. Because this apartment building was now part of Wagwa Water Curtain Group's property, Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch's first guess was that Wang Ling and Lotus Sun had definitely come here to investigate this Li Xian, and had definitely found something in the apartment building. Choosing a small, secluded corner near the apartment building, Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch enlarged his spiritual senses, and relying on his amazing senses, he used a kind of teleportation technique to accurately pinpoint Wang Ling's location. At the same time, the three members of the Eternal Imperial family, the Skeleton Prince, the Lion Man and Meng Lioli, who had been standing guard next to Wang Ling, were all shocked. After a moment of embarrassment, Meng Lioli looked at Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch, who looked very much like Wang Ling, and asked with a look of sudden realization, "You're Ling Jinren's clone." "No, you look more like a real clone." As a member of the Eternal Imperial family, Meng Lioli had a certain level of knowledge. Seeing that these three people were concentrating on standing guard for Wang Ling, Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch relaxed a little. He could tell that these three people didn't have any ill intentions, otherwise they would have already attacked him the moment he landed. "I understand, you must be worried because you couldn't find Ling Jinren, right? Don't worry, Ling Jinren is fine. He just followed the path of this mysterious character into the world it's in." The Lion Man's rough voice rang out. They were truly very serious as they worked exceptionally hard to protect Wang Ling, abiding by their duty as guards. Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch couldn't help but laugh at their hard work. But now that they had finally found Wang Ling's whereabouts, he heaved a long sigh of relief. He immediately took out his phone, intending to report back. The text had been sent to grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, Father Wang and Wang Muyu. "I found Ling Ling. I knew this kid would be fine," Father Wang said after looking at his phone. "Then what did the school teacher say?" Mother Wang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "This child, he didn't even tell us that he wasn't coming back tonight. Even if he's trying to safeguard world peace, he should at least have sent a text. He probably ran into some kind of trouble and couldn't keep track of the time." "But it's fine," Father Wang said. "If there really is a problem, our Anwan can go and help at any time." "Yeah." On the other side, Wang Wan had already put on a diaper and was ready to go. Chapter 1892. Wang Muyu had played his part these days and obeyed all orders. He just wanted to see Wang Ling and Lotus Sun as soon as possible. In the end, the days that he had been longing for passed by one after another, and he hadn't expected them to stand him up again in the end. He wasn't an insensible child, and immediately knew that Wang Ling and Lotus Sun had probably run into some trouble. When he thought of the extremely realistic dream he had a few days ago, his rainbow dragon heart immediately tensed up. The dragon clan's prophetic dreams might not be as accurate as Wang Ling's, but the chances of them hitting the mark weren't low either. He dreamed of someone stabbing Wang Ling in the back. A white knife went in and a red knife came out, directly piercing Wang Ling's heart from behind, and then stirring in his chest in a strange spiral. Wang Muyu had been startled awake by this nightmare, drenched in sweat. He was well aware that this was a prophecy, and that Wang Ling was about to be assassinated. Fortunately, he had received a reply from Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch. He knew that his father wasn't acting strangely, it was just that he might be entangled in some troublesome matter, and would need some time before he could extricate himself. Wang Muyu breathed a sigh of relief and looked out of the window. In the huge Sun family's castle and the bedroom that was the size of several living rooms, he was the only one here. The feeling of longing and loneliness surged in his heart in an instant. The high-tech toys and all kinds of imported snacks and drinks which Old Man Sun had meticulously prepared in the bedroom had all become tasteless at that moment. The maids in the Sun family's castle all had standard professional smiles. Wang Muyu could see that no matter what kind of question he asked, the other party had a standard set of words to answer, making it impossible for him to vent his anger on this group of people. Wang Muyu rang the bell, and very quickly, a maid pushed open the door and came in. Looking steadily out the window, he asked, "When will Grandpa's son be back?" The maid thought for a moment, then replied patiently, "Young Master Miyu, don't worry. Old Master may or may not be on his way back. We can only find out after a few hours or even longer when the gate of the castle is pushed open." Wang Miyu, sure enough, the maid's reply was the same as if she hadn't said anything. Although he'd long since figured out the language system of this group of servants, Wang Miyu's heart was still on the verge of collapse. All he needed to know was whether or not he would be back, or when he would be back. In the end, this group of people gave him the answer of Schrodinger's cat. Even their replies were filled with philosophical thoughts. "I'm going out." Wang Miyu sighed. He couldn't wait any longer and prepared to leave. "Young Master Miyu, it is very dangerous for you to go out now. It was already so late. Why don't I just wait here obediently? If you go out." Just when the maid wanted to continue arguing with him, Wang Miyu interrupted her bluntly, "Okay, then I'll listen to you. I won't go out." "That's good." The maid nodded in satisfaction and left the bedroom. Wang Miyu knew that he wouldn't be able to leave if he applied normally, so he could only trick the maid. Now that he knew Crispy Noodle's Dao Monarch's location, his current plan was to leave a clone in the Sun family's ancient castle so that his real body could go out and meet up with Wang Ling. In the end, just as he was about to move out, a familiar and piercingly cold aura pierced through the air outside the Sun family's ancient castle, and Wang Miyu was almost instantly on high alert. He couldn't retract the 7-colored dragon horns on his head, and under the sudden pressure, they instantly grew out from the 2 horns on his forehead. They glowed with prismatic colors like colored glass, and were a beautiful fluorescent color in the night, which was especially eye-catching. "It's you." Wang Miyu's eyes were vigilant as he stared in a certain direction outside the window. A figure with dragon wings spread out on his back landed in the moonlight, as if he had been teleported here. The man wore familiar diamond gloves and held a black umbrella, and there was a domineering look in his eyes. Wang Miyu hadn't expected Clear Swamp to choose this time to appear again. The matter with the holy race hadn't been fully resolved, and these resurrected dragon descendants had come to pick a fight again. Wang Miyu was a little annoyed, but the main reason was that his trip had been blocked. He wanted to see Wang Ling, but had been stopped at this time. Crossing his arms, Clear Swamp smiled coldly in the air. "Every debt has a debtor. The other people in this castle have nothing to do with me. As long as you come with me, it's fine. Do you still want to get beaten up?" Wang Miyu stared at Clear Swamp. "You're no match for me on your own. You haven't fully matured yet. As long as that person isn't here, it's hard to say who will emerge victorious." Clear Swamp smiled. It was only then that Wang Miyu realized with a start that this had actually been a plan from the very beginning. Clear Swamp and his group had been taking advantage of the time difference to strike while Wang Ling, Lotus Sun, and the other core members of Battle Sect were in the mysterious text world. Their real target had been him from the very beginning, it was just that they had been quiet for a long time, which was unexpected. It could only be said that Baiju's personality had changed, and he really wasn't the Baiju of the past. Such a sophisticated plan required a lot of patience. In the past, Baiju had been an impatient person who had always thought that he was invincible and would have no problem dealing with Wang Ling. In the end, every time he got anxious, he would be beaten up. Baiju, on the other hand, had continued to grow after repeated failures and had become an outstanding strategist. This was indeed a little unexpected. At this moment, Wang Miyu's expression became serious. He stared at Jing Zhe, who was hovering in the void, and felt that the other party had become stronger than when he first saw him. It was a change that was close to being reborn. It had not been a long time. According to the human cultivation world, it had not even been a month. Yet, it had grown to such an extent. But Wang Miyu didn't panic. Clear Swamp had indeed become stronger, but while it looked like he had been playing around, he had actually been going through all kinds of hard training. It looks like you don't want to go with me, so I'll have to take you back by force. In the next second, Clear Swamp attacked. He showed no mercy as he attacked with lightning. With a snap of his fingers, thunder surged in the sky, and tens of thousands of lightning bolts turned into a cage that enveloped Wang Miyu. Humph, Wang Miyu snorted. He opened the window and his little body directly jumped out. In the next moment, the magnificent rainbow dragon descendant behind him spread out to form an impenetrable barrier in front of him. The moment the electric cage approached, Wang Miyu directly flapped his dragon wings and smashed it to pieces. He was a master of the 10,000 dragon gene. Wang Miyu thought that Clear Swamp was indulging in fantasy if he thought that this electric cage could trap him. But his expression didn't relax from beginning to end. Looking at Clear Swamp's calm expression, he felt that the other party had come prepared, and there might be even more unexpected things waiting for him. What should I do? Should I look for Auntie Nguyen? That was what Wang Miyu thought at that moment. Chapter 1893. At the same time, in Li Xian's apartment, the three members of the royal family suddenly saw Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch look in one direction with a vigilant expression. Protecting Wang Miyu was part of Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch's responsibility. He had sensed that something was wrong with Wang Miyu, which was why he was so vigilant. But for a real clone, the safety of the main body was always the top priority. Based on the primary and secondary law, he couldn't leave Wang Ling's side now. Even though Wang Ling had 3 guardians of the eternal imperial family, he still didn't feel that this was stable enough. Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch, if you have something to do, you can go first. We're here, the skeleton prince volunteered. However, Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch's indifferent reply was, even with the 3 of you, there's no guarantee that his lord will be safe. The 3 of us are the eternal imperial family. I know. Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch nodded with a smile. But you're still too weak. The skeleton prince and the other 2 felt their hearts wrench when they heard this. They had kindly offered to stand guard here, but in the end, they had been doused with cold water. This was something they had never expected. In fact, it wasn't that Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch looked down on these 3 eternal imperial family members, but had come to this conclusion based on the current situation and repeated comparisons. If they were dealing with an ordinary eternal being, leaving 3 eternal imperial family members alive would definitely be enough. But now that the opponent was from the Dragon Clan, everything was uncertain. The reason why Wang Ling hadn't killed Baizhi earlier was also part of his plan, and Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch was also aware of this plan. Baizhi was now particularly cautious and wouldn't act rashly. Once the other side launched a large-scale attack, he would definitely reveal all his trump cards. In Wang Ling's eyes, the daily harassment was already child's play. Baizhi also knew that this method wouldn't be able to completely destroy Wang Ling, so both sides were now laying out a big plan. Baizhi was waiting for his trump cards to be fully prepared before launching an all-out attack. Wang Ling, on the other hand, was waiting for Baizhi to launch an all-out attack before directly catching them all in one fell swoop, not giving the other side any chance to turn the tables. Looking at the current situation, it was very clear that Wang Miyu was a very crucial element in Baizhi's overall plan. It could be seen from the repeated robberies that the other party had planned. Although he was also waiting for Baizhi to launch an all-out attack, this didn't conflict with protecting Wang Miyu, even if he wasn't used to this little guy's sudden arrival at first. But after spending so much time with him, he felt like he had a younger brother, and started to develop faint feelings that he couldn't bear to part with. Wang Miyu was too much like him, even their fondness for crispy noodle snacks was identical. As the saying went, it was hard to find a bosom friend. Based on this alone, there was no way Wang Ling would let Wang Miyu go. So now that Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch knew about the situation on Wang Miyu's side and couldn't leave, he could only send a text message to old Wang's family to ask for help. Very quickly, he received a reply text message. It was a short voice message. Using the voice-to-text function, it displayed the word "ya." This was little girl Nwan's direct reply on Father Wang's phone. Although the little girl wasn't even half a year old, she was already very familiar with smart devices. A few days ago, she had even gone online to buy the latest celebrity brand diapers for herself. When the courier delivered the diapers home, it was Wang Nwan who personally signed for them. She directly wrote the word "Nwan" on the delivery box with her foot, which horrified the courier. In his heart, he exclaimed that children nowadays were developing too fast, which made him feel a little frustrated. When he was half a year old, he didn't even know how to sit. This little girl actually knew how to shop online and sign for deliveries on her own. This was too outrageous. It's a message from Crispy Noodles. They said something happened at the Sun family's castle. Father Wang looked at Wang Nwan. The child in front of him wasn't even half a year old, but was already shouldering the heavy responsibility of saving the world. For a moment, he was inexplicably moved. He picked little girl Nwan up and looked at her lovingly. "Ah, Nwan, don't force yourself too much. Are you too tired?" Wang Nwan shook her head at lightning speed. Although she was only half a year old, she already understood the principle that with great power came great responsibility. As his younger sister, she could directly feel how good he was to her. It was precisely because of this that now that her big brother was in trouble, she naturally had to help him as his younger sister. But once he left, Father Wang and Mother Wang's safety would be unguaranteed. So before she officially left, Wang Nwan left her shadow behind and hid it under the sofa in old Wang's house. Dragon breath filled the sky as the huge shadow of a dragon soared through the sky. Dozens of lightning dragons coiled high in the sky, and dark clouds covered the sky as if they were about to collapse. This was the power of Pure Zay's core world. Wang Liu was well aware that he had already fallen into another of Pure Zay's cages, but this was of his own accord. Because it was better than hurting innocent people. As for Jing Zay, he fulfilled his promise. He didn't attack the innocent and only targeted him. Wang Liu knew that this was a kind of arrogance that stemmed from being a descendant of the Dragon clan. Wang Liu still had a trace of hope for the Lightning Dragon. He believed that the Lightning Dragon had a sense of justice and was just being used. At that moment in the core world, Pure Zay was the ruler and god of this world, and possessed an even more powerful sense of oppression. Wang Liu felt that it would be very difficult to persuade such a god with words. "So I have no choice but to beat you into submission." At that moment, Wang Liu sighed in his heart. As Pure Zay had said, he hadn't fully matured yet, but he had improved a lot during this time. Although he had yet to experience what it felt like to fight against the pressure of the core world, he felt that since his dad could ignore the power of other people's core worlds, he could do the same. Buzz! In the blink of an eye, rainbow glass dragon breath surrounded Wang Ling's body, and elemental dragons of different colors hovered around him. Colorful dragon wings spread out at that moment, and with a kind of light, Wang Ling looked like a beautiful splash ink painting with the charm of an ancient dragon. Wang Liu had grown up. The dragon breath in his body was purer than when he had been born, and Pure Zay was greatly shocked by this astonishing rate of growth. Even though he didn't show it on the surface, Wang Liu's growth made him suddenly realize why Baizha had racked his brains to snatch Wang Liu back. At that moment, he understood everything. Because Wang Liu was the hope for the revival of the Dragon Clan. The hope for the Dragon Clan to become the overlord of the universe again. Chapter 1894. Jing Zay soared into the sky, and the power of thunder surged around him. His divine power was surging, and the pressure was oppressive. In the heyday of the Dragon Clan, a battle between two dragons was an extremely terrible thing, because it would indicate a destructive planetary war. However, in Jing Zhe's inner world, with the help of the eternal moon starlight bestowed by Bai Zhe, his entire inner world had been strengthened. It was as if a layer of tempered film had been stuck on it. No matter how turbulent the inside was, the walls of the inner world remained intact. This made Wang Miyu, who had noticed this scene at the same time, feel relieved. With such a strong inner wall, he and Jing Zhe could fight without restraint. And it was obvious that Jing Zhe came prepared. He did not dare to have the slightest neglect. The seven-colored glazed dragon chi was boiling all over his body, lingering around his small body, making his body appear magical and translucent. He soared into the sky and spat out seven-colored dragon flames. The amazing power of the elements directly swept in front of him, directly meeting the thunder dragon summoned by Jing Zhe. At this time, Jing Zhe's face did not relax in the slightest. This was a collision between psionic powers. He knew that Wang Miyu was extremely talented. He had condensed the power of 10,000 dragons in his body, had thousands of changes, and could use the abilities of every kind of dragon. This was the most terrifying thing about Wang Miyu. However, in Jing Zhe's view, this was also a fatal flaw before he had completely cultivated it. No matter how many dragon abilities one had, it would be useless if they were not proficient in all of them. Obviously, Wang Miyu had also thought of this. Therefore, he had integrated a variety of elemental powers in the dragon flames at the same time, wanting to use this hodgepodge method to make up for the shortcomings. You haven't cultivated to the peak. Everything is in vain. Jing Zhe said coldly. His face was solemn. He had already developed the potential of the lightning dragon to the extreme, and was completely unafraid of the seven-colored dragon flames spewed by Wang Miyu. The powerful thunder dragon's breath formed a huge pillar of light, as if the heavens were collapsing, and directly offset the dragon flames spewed by Wang Miyu. It was a combination of a variety of dragon abilities, but it still could not compare to Jing Zhe's top-notch lightning dragon power, which made Wang Miyu unhappy. Compared to the last time, Jing Zhe had made too much progress. Even under the guidance of Bai Zhe, such a growth rate was amazing. At one point, it was even close to surpassing him. Wang Miyu thought that his growth potential was the best among all the dragon descendants, but he didn't expect it to be the same. Of course, putting aside talent, Jing Zhe might have used other methods to quickly raise his level. But in such a short period of time, how was it done? Wang Miyu's expression did not change. His first move had allowed him to know Jing Zhe's strength as a top-notch lightning dragon. In the next moment, he stretched out his small hand and slammed it on the ground with his palm facing down in a half-squatting posture. An explosion sounded out as the ground trembled. Numerous elemental dragons soared into the air from the ground, giving off a heaven-shaking sound as the heavens and earth started to tremble. Seeing this scene, Jingze raised his eyebrows. This was too wasteful. He didn't take spiritual power consumption into consideration at all. No matter how heaven-defying a person was, in modern terms, there was still a blue bar. It was impossible to use skills without limit. Thus, in a duel between top experts, consumption would be taken into account during the fight, and they would calculate the time to release the corresponding ability at the right time, thus setting the pace of the entire fight. Jingze could also tell from his probing that while Wang Miyu's rich and overbearing style of play meant that this little guy had unlimited spirit energy, it was also a sign that he lacked combat experience. Let him exhaust himself, and we'll definitely win. A voice from the other side of the universe rang out in Jingze's mind. It was a familiar man's voice, and if Wang Ling had been present, he would have easily recognized this person. On the other side of the universe, a huge dragon the size of a star was entrenched there. Emitting holy moonlight, it issued commands from the depths of the infinite Milky Way as it remotely commanded Jingze. This was a type of long-range microcontrol. Baizhi had entered the field. Jingze didn't obstruct Baizhi's judgment, and instead used his own methods to provide support and assistance. In order to divert Wang Ling's attention, he had painstakingly planned this eternal chess game in order to bring Wang Miyu back. Wang Miyu was the most crucial chess piece in his plan. Today, he had chosen to let Jing Zhe take action, and he himself was personally in command. This was a determined attitude. With someone backing him, Jing Zhe naturally had nothing to fear. He opened his black umbrella, and at that moment, activated its other form. Wang Miyu's eyes were shaken. He hadn't expected this black umbrella to actually have a bow form. The moment the black umbrella opened, the ribs rearranged themselves under Jing Zhe's control to turn into a pitch-black bow and arrow wrapped in black lightning. The handle of the umbrella separated on the spot, and the hook at the end spun to perfectly latch onto the black umbrella's bowstring, directly turning it into a giant arrow. The endless power of lightning jumped and surged on the bow and arrow, as if it had absorbed the power of lightning from the entire universe. Then, boom! With a deafening explosion, Jing Zhe abruptly fired the bow and arrow that the black umbrella had turned into with tremendous power. Space shattered inch by inch as it whistled through the air, and even the inner wall of the core world started to shake under the tremendous impact. If it wasn't for Baiji's support in secret, the core world might have already collapsed. With astonishing power, the giant arrow streaked across the sky with an overbearing momentum as it directly pierced through Wang Miyu and the elemental dragon that he had summoned. Then, guided by Jing Zhe's lightning, the lightning arrow returned to his hand in the blink of an eye, becoming a perpetual motion, like a bullet that would never run out of bullets. The elemental dragons that Wang Miyu had summoned came in all shapes and sizes, and filled this small space. However, Jing Zhe had used his black umbrella to transform it into a bow and arrow to destroy them one by one, which was something Wang Miyu had never expected. To Wang Miyu's horror, Jing Zhe's arrow did not simply pierce through his elemental WIRM. Instead, it seemed to have absorbed the power of the elemental WIRM every time it was retracted. The power was like a stream that was constantly being superimposed on the arrow. By the time Wang Miyu saw through Jing Zhe's intentions and wanted to retrieve the elemental dragon, it was already too late. Jing Zhe, who had already dealt with the last elemental dragon, had already aimed the arrow at Wang Miyu. Then, he pulled the bow fully and released it. Chapter 1895. Wang Miyu was in danger. At that moment, in East Great Emperor's body, Wang Ling was lost in thought for a moment in front of the Ping family's headquarters on planet Pinglai. This was a sixth sense for danger. Even though Wang Ling was now in a world that transcended time and space, he could still sense it. Wang Miyu was now like a younger brother to Wang Ling. Although they didn't usually communicate much, there was already a faint feeling that he couldn't let go of. Wang Ling had always been very wooden, and didn't understand what this feeling was, but he knew that he would never just send Wang Miyu to Baizhou. In fact, Wang Ling had already made plans for Wang Miyu's safety. After Qin Zong and Xiang Yi had taken up the positions of guest elders in Battle Sept, the first secret mission they had received was actually to protect Wang Miyu. At that moment, even if Wang Ling didn't say anything, these two strongest bodyguards could sense this danger that transcended time and space. Something happened to little brother Miyu, Qin Zong said in the team voice spell. In order not to disturb Lotus Sun's marriage proposal test, he could only talk to Xiang Yi alone. Did Baizhou make a move? Xiang Yi asked. That's right. Judging from his combat strength, he's still a dragon descendant. Qin Zong frowned slightly. I now have reason to suspect that we were arranged to go to eternity as part of their plan. They want to take the opportunity to attack little brother Miyu. Speaking up to this point, Xiang Yi, who was playing the role of North Emperor, suddenly smiled. Unfortunately, they found the wrong person. After all, it was Wang Ling's job to protect Wang Miyu, so Qin Zong and Xiang Yi were extremely serious. As they talked, they used their own heaven-defying methods to find out most of the situation in the modern cultivation world. Yo, this kid is pretty arrogant. He even uses a bow and arrow. Interesting. When Xiang Yi saw Jing Zhe transform that black umbrella into a bow and arrow, he started to get a little excited. Qin Zong seemed to have guessed what Xiang Yi was going to do. So, you want to snipe him? I do that a lot. Xiang Yi scratched his head. And my bullets will never rust. Although it's a different timeline, I think it shouldn't be hard to snipe him. Nguyen Jinren seems to be ready to make a move as well. I just need to buy some time. In the past, Xiang Yi's sniping targets were a lot of cutting-edge alien technology. But now, the target of sniping was actually a bow and arrow classified as a dragon descendant magic weapon. This new experience also made Xiang Yi eager to try. His Nine-Yang Divine Sword was a powerful super-heavy sniper rifle. He wondered what would happen if he were to face off against this bow and arrow of an immemorial dragon descendant. Thinking of this, Xiang Yi couldn't stay any longer. He quickly said to Qin Zong, "Excuse me, I'll go find a seat. Little brother Mu Yu is in danger. Do you want me to stand on the side? Can I give you some assistance?" Qin Zong asked. "No, I'll be back soon." Xiang Yi shook his head and said. Boom. On the other side, Jing Zhe's diamond glove and the black umbrella that had transformed into a bow glowed at the same time. The two most powerful dragon descendant artifacts surged with endless lightning, and at the same time, they emitted a kind of holy moonlight. That was the power that Baizhi had bestowed upon him from afar. When this arrow was shot, all things were destroyed. It was as if a god had descended onto the world, as if it could pierce through everything. Wang Liyu's expression changed. He could feel the power contained in this arrow. It was truly astonishing. The moment Jing Zhe let go, the heavy lightning pressed forward like overturning seawater. It had the effect of moonlight tracking, which was an additional ability of Baizhi's. No matter how Wang Liu dodged, this arrow would still stab him. This was an arrow with 100% hit rate. It was only then that Wang Liu realized the difference in tactics between him and Jing Zhe. It wasn't that his strength was inferior to Jing Zhe's, but it was completely due to his lack of combat experience that caused the situation before him. More importantly, Wang Liu hadn't expected the black umbrella in Jing Zhe's hand to have such an effect. It could transform into a bow. This was an unstoppable attack. Wang Liu knew that he would definitely be hit, but he still put up a last-ditch struggle. Otherwise, the arrow would hit his vitals. He worked hard to calculate the power and distance of the arrow. Finally, at the moment of impact, he used the Gravity Dragon's ability to reconfigure the surrounding space's gravity to buy himself some time. However, the power of Jing Zhe's arrow was too strong. This kind of delay was like trying to put out a burning cart of firewood with a cup of water. He couldn't block the huge power of this arrow. The arrow directly pierced through his left shoulder, creating a thunderstorm. 7-colored glass dragon blood instantly gushed out, splattering all over the ground. You can't escape. Jing Zhe's face was expressionless. He raised his hand, and lightning surged in his palm. Once again, he used the power of lightning to call back the arrow. This time, the arrow was mixed with the power of Wang Liu's glass dragon blood, causing the arrow's ability to reach a new level. He didn't want to kill Wang Liu, but he brought out 100% of his combat power. Jing Zhe knew very well that this was the only way he could seriously injure this talented little guy who had fused with the 10,000 dragon gene and brought him back. At this time, Wang Liu had already been hit by his arrow. As long as the second arrow hit, Wang Liu would no longer be able to resist. Is the revival of the dragon race that important to you, Jing Zhe? Wang Liu asked. He didn't understand why Jing Zhe would pursue this so painstakingly. He didn't even hesitate to bend his knees and be driven by evil people. He felt that there was still a sense of justice in Jing Zai's body. He shouldn't have been used by Baizhi like that. The glory of the dragon race was already history. The destruction of the dragon race had nothing to do with modern cultivators. Wang Miyu didn't understand why this beautiful era had to be destroyed. Why did they have to return to the world of hegemony, plunder, survival of the fittest, and the supremacy of strength? You've been in contact with human cultivators for too long. Naturally, you won't understand. This is also the reason why I have to bring you back, Jing Zai said. His expression was calm, and there was no emotional fluctuation. He was like an emotionless killing machine, aiming his arrow at Wang Miyu. You don't have any chance. After saying that, he let go of his hand. However, the moment he let go of his hand, suddenly, a brilliant silver beam of light seemed to have pierced through the end of the universe. With the aura of endless time, it pierced straight through. This was a beautiful silver bullet. Jing Zai's pupils instantly dilated as if there was an earthquake. He had never thought that there would be such a bullet shooting at him from a strange angle. Boom! The next second, accompanied by an explosive sound, the silver bullet accurately hit the arrow wrapped in lightning and moonlight. Chapter 1896. This silver bullet had come from beyond the sky with astonishing accuracy, and it had pierced through the core world. Before it hit the arrow, it had directly punched a huge hole in the outer wall of the core world. Who could have shot a bullet with such power? Even Jingza was shocked. He had never seen such powerful modern cultivation technology. In order to ensure that there were no obstacles in the way of the Dragon Clan's revival, Jingza had previously assessed the level of modern human cultivation society in all aspects. This wasn't the power of any heavy sniper rifle on Earth at all. He couldn't figure out who on Earth could fire such a powerful bullet to stop him. But judging from the method, this person clearly wasn't Wang Ling. He and Baizhi had discussed Wang Ling's behavior in depth before, and this was someone who would slap someone at the slightest disagreement. Long-range sniping like this clearly wasn't Wang Ling's style. This is a bullet fired from eternity. In the boundless and deep universe, Baizhi's ethereal voice came from the planet formed by the enormous moonlight dragon's body, which rumbled like a great Tao bell in the universe, making Jingza's heart fill with awe. Dragon Lord. Don't worry, my venerable self is by your side. This bullet is just a way to stall for time. Baizhi spoke with great confidence. After all, his opponent wasn't Wang Ling, and he believed that he had a way to deal with this situation. With Baizhi's backing, Jingza was clearly much more confident. He took a deep breath and pulled back the bowstring in his hand. A second arrow was fired at Wang Miyu, but at the same time, the silver bullet from beyond the sky arrived again with great precision. With a swoosh, it cut through the air and pierced the outer wall of the core world, sharp and precise. At the same time, Baizhi also acted. From a distant position, he infused moonlight into Jingza, which turned into a bright moon behind him. In a split second, endless cold air surged forth, as if it had the mystical power to freeze the highest heavens. The silver bullet slowed down significantly under this freezing power. Wang Miyu could see that this wasn't a simple freeze, but a type of moon god ice that could completely freeze time and space. This was one of Moonlight Dragon's most powerful skills. When they first met, Baizhi hadn't shown this power. Now, however, he was able to control it. This shocked Wang Miyu. He was clearly a usurper who had nothing to do with the dragon race. He had merely taken the identity of a moonlight dragon, yet he had been able to comprehend the dragon race's ultimate technique to this level. Boom! Wang Miyu opened his mouth and spat out a glass-like flame. This was originally the dragon race's restraining technique to neutralize moon god ice. When the moon god ice met the colored glass flame, one could clearly feel the moon god ice evaporating under the colored glass flame's heat. However, Wang Muyu's proficiency with the colored glass flame was clearly not high, and one could feel that he was already working very hard to spit out fire. However, Baijia's moon god ice was a level higher. Under the powerful freezing power, the colored glass flame's restraining effect was like trying to put out a cart of firewood with a cup of water. Is this the pride of the dragon clan that you spoke of, Jingze? Wang Muyu was furious. As a descendant of the dragon race, he had to watch as someone who didn't belong to the dragon clan usurped the throne. This made him very angry. He asked loudly in a childish voice. His voice seemed to emanate from his bones, and it had a natural and clean quality to it. This caused Jingze's gaze to change slightly. However, he quickly recovered his cold expression and stared at Wang Muyu. As long as the dragon clan can rise again, it doesn't matter to me who the leader is. He replied to Wang Muyu. Crack. Everything happened in an instant. Under Baijia's cover, the moon god ice spread along the trajectory of the second silver bullet. It froze everything around it and froze the bullet in the air. However, the next second, there was a huge explosion in the air. Jingze hadn't expected the second bullet to be a spell trap. As soon as it was stopped by an external force, it would immediately explode. A huge mushroom cloud rose up from the core world. The powerful shockwave affected the arrow's trajectory, causing Jingze's second arrow to miss. I knew it would be like this. In the distance, Xiang Yi sneered. He held the nine-yang divine sword in his hand, and his expression relaxed. His mission had been completed. After all, he was in the past, and it was too difficult to snipe across time and space. It would be better to leave the rest to spiritual master Nuan. After the spirit explosion, Jingze and Baizhi waited in place for a while. The third bullet that had traveled across time did not arrive. Baizhi knew clearly that the number of bullets in this time was limited. The third bullet would not arrive in a short time. It seems that no one will stop us anymore. He sighed and gave Jingze the next order. Now was the best time to capture Wang Muyu. Jingze nodded slightly. He called back the arrow and put his hand on the bowstring again. However, unlike before, there seemed to be an artifact tied to the arrow's head. It was a giant sealing net called the 10,000 scale dragon net. It was a magic artifact that Baizhi had specially created to imprison Wang Muyu. It was made from tens of thousands of dragon scales, and the moment it appeared, it produced an incomparably dazzling divine light. This net was also a dragon descendant magic artifact, and it was at the light level. In order to capture Wang Muyu, Baizhi had definitely gone to great lengths. This was the last attack, and unless Wang Ling came in person, Jingze felt that no one could stop it. Blood seeped from the corner of Wang Muyu's mouth. He hadn't given up, and was releasing the last of his dragon qi to resist. However, with the 10,000 scale dragon net here, it was useless no matter what he did. Qi! Another arrow. And it was an arrow with the 10,000 scale dragon net. At the same time, from an extremely far distance, Wang Ling's gaze fell on the first scene at the same time. But he didn't make a move, because he knew very well that Jingze's arrow would be stopped. With a puff, a green light flew down from the distance like an aurora and directly resisted the power of the two dragon descendant magic artifacts, the arrow and the 10,000 scale dragon net. Damn it, why is there another one? Jingze was a little impatient. One person after another jumped out to stop him, which made him extremely annoyed. Then he calmed down and saw clearly what was stopping his two dragon descendant magic artifacts. He was shocked. Because it turned out to be a green blade of grass. Is this a sword spirit? In a trance, Jingze frowned, feeling like he had seen this familiar scene before. Yaw! In the next second, a small body broke through the air and directly smashed through the outer wall of the inner world with its diaper-covered butt, forcing its way in. He looked at the baby girl who had suddenly barged in. At that moment, Jingze was horrified. Chapter 1897. The moment Lang Ming and Wang Wan arrived, Jing Zhe cursed in his heart, because in just a few short minutes, the outer walls of his inner world had already been broken through one after another. If it wasn't for the eternal moon starlight, which had a certain self-healing effect, the outer walls of his inner world would already be riddled with holes. Yah! Wang Wan appeared. Her small body contained a tremendous amount of spirit power, and Jing Zhe was completely taken aback. It wasn't that he and Baizhi had forgotten this. They had already seen how terrifying this little girl was. It was just that she was too young, and they had thought that even if Wang Wan took action, they would be able to handle her. But now, Baizhi and Jing Zhe realized that they had still underestimated this little girl's ability to grow. This terrifying little girl's aura was too ferocious. She wasn't even half a year old, but she was like a prehistoric beast. Every day, her body underwent earth-shattering changes. What would happen if she grew up? Thus, in that instant, Baizhi had the feeling that even if Wang Ling was now trapped in the eternal world, the fear of being at the mercy of the old Wang family came back to haunt him. But he refused to admit it, and thought that the person he was facing was just a baby who was nothing to be afraid of. He immediately ordered Jing Zhe, catch Wang Muyu and kill her. Seeing a tiny baby body standing in front of another tiny body, he roared furiously. Without any hesitation, he gave Jing Zhe a death order. Wang Wan was too strong. The most logical course of action was to kill her before she fully matured. As he spoke, Jing Zhe attacked again. The arrow in his hand turned into an astonishing electric dragon with a radius as large as a small mountain as it swiftly flew toward Wang Wan. However, all their attention was focused on Wang Wan, and they ignored the little green grass that had arrived at the same time as her. Ling Ming had become stronger and his body had become sturdier as he continued to cultivate in the Sword King world. He leaped through the air like a fairy, fearless in the face of Jing Zhe. A little grass could cut down the sun, the moon, and the stars, and Ling Ming could do it now. What was even more surprising to Jing Zhe was that this powerful little grass. Ling Ming was naturally unafraid of lightning. He charged directly at the lightning dragon. The emerald green sword light burst forth from below, like an Arctic meteor transforming into a huge grass dragon, colliding with the lightning dragon. Then, the lightning dragon and the arrow were completely swallowed up. Ling Ming's strength had once again exceeded the scope of Jing Zhe's understanding. He had seen this blade of grass before, but it was far from being as difficult to deal with as it was now. Coupled with Ling Ming's natural restraining ability, Jing Zhe was at a loss for a moment. He knew that the 5 elements restrained each other, so he tried to use thunder and lightning to detonate the divine fire to burn Ling Ming. Unexpectedly, Ling Ming was not even afraid of fire. Instead, Ling Ming, who was covered in flames, erupted with an even stronger combat power. Using strange arcs in the void, he continuously displayed his exquisite movement technique. Finally, the heavenly fire descended. From the horizon, it turned into a rain of fire and rained down. Seeing the divine fire descend, Jing Zhe finally panicked. He originally thought that according to the 5 elements restrained each other, Ling Ming would be extremely afraid of fire. However, he did not expect that this blade of grass would actually overcome this weakness and turn the divine fire burning on his body into his own. He gritted his teeth and was forced to change the bow and arrow in his hand back into the form of the black umbrella to block the divine fire shower in front of him. There was a time limit for the black umbrella's transformation, and there was a period of time between each transformation. This also meant that Jing Zhe would not be able to use that troublesome bow and arrow for a period of time. Having achieved his goal, Ling Ming landed on the ground and took root. He calmly watched as the divine fire burned his body to ashes. Was he committing suicide? No. In the distance, Jing Zhe narrowed his eyes. He realized that the land where Ling Ming was had been burned bare. However, at this moment, a gust of wind blew past, and the emerald green grass on the ground emerged once again. This was the spring wind brings life again spell, a consummate skill that Lang Ming had comprehended from the Sword King world. As long as there was land, he didn't fear any fire. Fire indeed restrained him, including the piercing pain when the divine fire had burned him just now. However, he had now cultivated to a level where he could face it calmly. At that moment, Jing Zhe felt a little overwhelmed. He couldn't even break through a sword spirit, let alone deal with the baby behind him. With Lang Ming's help, Wang Yuan had already taken care of Wang Miyu's injuries. It was only then that Wang Miyu realized to his shock that his Aunt Yuan's diapers weren't ordinary diapers. They were simply a mobile magic treasure trove that could be used in anything. She took out all kinds of bottles and jars of medicine, and without saying a word, she directly opened the caps and poured them into Wang Miyu's mouth. These bottles and jars were all elixirs that he had refined in his spare time. Almost all of them were crispy noodle snacks, and when Wang Miyu ate them, he felt a sense of familiarity. As a descendant of the 10,000 dragons, Wang Miyu's greatest advantage was that he had a strong physique, and wouldn't die no matter how many supplements he took. Given this situation, Wang Yuan didn't care about the effects at all, and directly sat on Wang Miyu's body and fed him bottle after bottle. This could definitely be called the most powerful feeding in history. After all, Wang Ling had refined these elixirs, and their effects alone were several times stronger than those of ordinary elixirs. Thus, when the effects of these supplements collided in Wang Miyu's body, he felt as if a grand fireworks party was going on inside him, and countless fireworks started to collide inside him. Not only had Jing Zhe's arrow wound healed at a speed visible to the naked eye, Wang Miyu had even vaguely sensed that he was about to break through. After pouring out the last bottle of pills, Wang Yuan thought that she had completed the first step of her work. She turned and flew down from Wang Miyu's body. She stood upright and floated in the void, staring at the cleansing lake in the void. This was the gaze of the master of Shadow Dao, and it made Jing Zhe's hair stand on end. At that moment, Wang Yuan had already decided to do it herself. With a wave of her hand, she summoned Lang Ming to her side, then climbed onto Lang Ming's sturdy shoulder and directly commanded her sword spirit as a mount. Lang Ming's little face was full of care and love. He completely obeyed Wang Yuan's instructions and gave her complete command. This was also a disguised form of becoming one with the sword, which gave Jing Zhe an ominous feeling. Boom! In the next moment, Wang Yuan made her move. Riding on Lang Ming's shoulder, the two figures arrived almost instantaneously, so fast that Jing Zhe couldn't react. A small palm slapped forward and landed precisely on the right side of Jing Zhe's face, instantly cracking his teeth. Chapter 1898. It was hard to imagine that a palm the size of a baby's, which looked as soft as cotton, could actually slap someone mercilessly. This small slap pushed Jing Zhe back 100 li in the inner world, and he slid on the ground face first, directly plowing out an abyss. It was just a simple slap, but Jing Zhe was already dizzy from the slap, and a trace of fear finally appeared on his expressionless face. It was a fear that came from the depths of his soul. Because this slap was all too familiar to him, it was like a memory that had been engraved in his bones since the last time he had been slapped, and he couldn't forget it. When he got up from the bottom of the abyss, Jing Zhe had already tried very hard to convince himself that the other party was just a little baby who didn't need to fear him at all, but his body still couldn't stop trembling. Thus, Jing Zhe abruptly erupted. He circulated all his spirit energy and spread his dragon wings wide open, and the sparkling and translucent dragon bones shone with a rich luster under the swirling lightning. Wang Yuan was well aware that this was fear. Although she wasn't very old, she was still sensitive to emotions. Everyone faced fear in different ways. Jing Zhe's apparent outburst was in fact a cover-up. Roaring, he charged to the front and scattered lightning to every corner of the inner world. As he roared, thunder god whips broke out of the ground one after another. Tens of thousands of thunder god whips broke out of the ground, and like tentacles, they swayed back and forth in the inner world. The power of the old world. Lang Ming frowned. His Shifis had warned him before that he had to be on guard against the revival of the old world. This was also the focus of Jinke and Bai Qiao's training for Lang Ming. As the future successor of Sword King World, Lang Ming had studied very seriously at the time, and had a certain level of understanding of the old world. It was a mysterious and terrifying history that symbolized darkness and devouring. No one hoped that the power of the old world would resurface in an era of peace. It wasn't just the modern cultivation world, even Sword King World and other worlds had to be on guard against the emergence of this power. And the biggest symbol of the old world was those mysterious tentacles. Wang Yuan had eaten a few of them before, and they hadn't tasted good. Fortunately, they had done their homework in advance, and neither Lang Ming nor Wang Yuan was afraid at all. They had thought that Jing Zhe would come up with something more interesting after his outburst, but in the end, it was only at this level, which disappointed Wang Yuan. As the younger sister, she wanted to surpass her brother, but her brother was really too strong. Who knew how long it would take for him to surpass Wang Ling based on his talent alone? The point was that while she was growing, her brother would also grow. If both of them grew, how long would it take for them to catch up? Therefore, Wang Yuan's goal was very clear. Although she had only been born a few months ago, her small body already had great ambitions. She had thought it through very thoroughly. The only way to surpass her brother was to constantly fight and temper herself in battle. Who would have thought that at the critical moment, Wang Ling would have to resort to such a lousy method? It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was a small fry. If one looked down on Wang Yuan just by looking at her, and felt that as long as they could defeat her with a strange spell that surpassed her age, they would be underestimating the youngest of the Wang family. As the master of Shadow Dao, wherever there was light, there would be shadows, and using shadows to counter attacks was what Wang Yuan was best at. The lightning that Jing Zhe had released actually created an excellent environment for Wang Yuan. Unhurriedly, she sat on Lang Ming's neck and began to circulate all the spirit energy in her body. Boom! On the surface of the core world, countless pitch-black tentacles reached out from underground. These were all shadows that Wang Yuan had replicated. Their might was equivalent to these lightning whips, and the moment they appeared, they formed an equal suppression against the tentacles that Jing Zhe had summoned. Then, taking advantage of this counterbalance, Wang Yuan extended her tentacles again. Ha! But this time, it was Wang Yuan's little foot that touched Jing Zhe's face. The instant this little flying leg kicked toward Jing Zhe, the huge force it formed exploded on Jing Zhe's face, distorting the void and completely tearing it apart. The seemingly ordinary flying leg was actually too powerful. In that instant, Jing Zhe felt as if his face had been swept by a huge mountain, and he was immediately sent flying. He spat out a large mouthful of blood, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. So powerful, even Lang Ming was dumbfounded. Although he knew that Wang Yuan was very powerful, he didn't expect her to be so ferocious and domineering. For a moment, as Wang Yuan soared spirit, Lang Ming felt a lot of pressure. Before he knew it, he had already been swept away. In order to become a sword spirit that was worthy of Wang Yuan, Lang Ming felt that he had to work harder. Cough. Jing Zhe crawled up from the ground for the second time. This was already the second time that he had been attacked in the face. His body was covered in blood, and he looked to be in a very bad condition. The dragon wings on his back had already been fractured, and even a few dragon scales had been shaved off by Wang Yuan. He kept coughing up blood, but his expression still showed no signs of admitting defeat. On the other side, Wang Yuan had no intention of letting Jing Zhe go. After all, Wang Muyu was injured. Although she had fed him a lot of tonics, Wang Yuan felt that it was not enough to vent her anger just by hitting him twice. Therefore, after hitting Jing Zhe twice, she was actually waiting for Jing Zhe's injuries to recover. After all, Jing Zhe's injuries could be quickly healed with the eternal moon starlight that Baizhi had given him. To Wang Yuan, this was excellent news. Because Jing Zhe's rapid recovery meant two things. One was that he could let her fight to her heart's content. On the other hand, it was a very special way to gain combat experience. Although Jing Zhe wasn't very strong, he had a lot of health. Although his strength was too weak, as long as his body was sturdy enough, he could barely make it as an opponent. Therefore, Wang Yuan calculated that Jing Zhe had more or less recovered, and attacked again. The boundless spiritual energy in her body exploded at this moment, turning into endless lightning. This was a technique that she had learned from Jing Zhe using her Shadow Dao ability. This was truly giving him a taste of his own medicine. Lightning is useless against me. Jing Zhe laughed. He was mocking Wang Yuan for actually trying to use lightning against him. However, very quickly, he was slapped in the face by Wang Yuan again. This was because in the next second, the head hammer that contained the power of lightning smashed onto his body again. Moreover, it was aimed at his vitals. He was hit accurately on the spot. In that instant, Jing Zhe felt as if his body had been struck by lightning. He instantly let out a painful scream. Chapter 1899. This precise blow made Jing Zhe feel as if his lower limbs were cracking, as if the sky was falling down. He had never thought that he would be beaten so badly by a baby. Boom! Endless black great Dao runes of the Master of Shadow Dao appeared on Wang Yuan's body. As the creator of this Dao, her small body exuded boundless godly might, like a god of war. Without using any other spells at all, the pure physical strength of the Master of Shadow Dao's great Dao overlaid on top of Jing Zhe's body was enough to overwhelm this dragon descendant. Bang! Bang! There were two loud bangs as Wang Yuan kicked him away. The instant he was sent flying, she moved again. Carrying her, Lingming's speed was unbelievably fast. When Jing Zhe moved to the next coordinate, Lingming and the little girl accurately predicted Jing Zhe's landing point and arrived ahead of time. Then, they kicked Jing Zhe's spine hard. Baizhi couldn't believe his eyes. Wang Yuan's growth rate was too terrifying. In some sense, she might be even more amazing than when he had been born. How could a little girl be so strong? He didn't dare believe it. Crack! Wang Yuan's kick could be said to be merciless. She directly broke Jing Zhe's spine. Everyone present could clearly hear the sound of Jing Zhe's spine breaking. His entire body was sent flying, and he was covered in blood. "Yaw!" Wang Yuan said. Ling Ming, who had his own simultaneous interpreter, translated on the side. "My sword master said that you're too weak, and a dragon descendant at that." Furthermore, it was a dragon descendant. This was too embarrassing. Also, you'll find that the eternal moon starlight on you doesn't work, because my sword master used his Shadow Dao ability to cover it up. Cough. Jing Zhe coughed up blood on the ground. He had already put on a mask of pain, and his face was twisted. He really couldn't understand how the word, "ya," could translate so many things. "Ya." At that moment, Wang Yuan gave another order. Ling Ming understood, and without another word, he stepped on Jing Zhe's broken spine. "Behave, my sword master wants to borrow something from you." After saying that, he directly reached his hand in. The moment his fingertips fell, they turned into soft grass, and then directly cut open Jing Zhe's back along his spine. Ling Ming skillfully took out a jade bottle and gathered as much of Jing Zhe's dragon's pine blood into it. This time, Wang Yuan did not bring her original mount, SCB-096. When the little girl thought that her lovely rabbit was still waiting at home, she suddenly had an idea. Jing Zhe was a little weak, but the dragon's pine blood was a good supplement. It was perfect as a midnight snack. Furthermore, SCP-096 still had a lot of room for growth. It still needed time to develop, and dragon's pine blood was the perfect supplement. The corners of Jing Zai's mouth twitched. He lay on the ground with a pained expression, unable to move, allowing Wang Yuan and Lang Ming to do whatever they wanted to him. As the descendant of a dragon, he had suffered such humiliation twice for no reason. He had been taught a lesson by Wang Ling last time. And this time, he was taught a lesson by Wang Yuan. This pair of siblings from the Wang clan was too frightening. Jing Zai realized that he couldn't afford to offend them. "Girl, you're having fun beating me up, but have you ever thought that your house would be on fire?" At that moment, Jing Zai sneered. He knew that he couldn't die. Even if he failed in this mission and failed to bring Wang Miu back, luring Wang Ling away and taking Wang Miu away was only the second step in the whole plan. If they went further in, they had in fact arranged for another group of people to be sent directly to the Wang family's small villa. The purpose was none other than to assassinate the Wang family. Whether it was Father Wang or Mother Wang, they had already been included in Baiji's purge list. The grave god had failed in his attack on the Wang family last time, but Baizhi felt that he had a good chance of succeeding this time without Wang Ling around. Most importantly, this strongest little girl was also in the core world now. With Jingze and him keeping an eye on her from behind, Baizhi felt that there was a good chance that little girl Nguan would succeed this time. Elsewhere, in the Wang family's small villa, there was actually an anxious atmosphere. Their daughter and son weren't around, and although Father and Mother Wang didn't show it on the surface, they were in fact very worried. It wasn't that they were worried about Wang Nguan's strength, but that they were worried about everything else. After all, little girl Nguan had only been born a few months ago, and she had actually been sent to maintain peace on Earth. Even Father Wang felt that he couldn't write such a melodramatic plot. Thus, the current situation was that old Wang and his wife were waiting at home. Without anyone at home, they couldn't even eat to their heart's content. Father Wang had no appetite for food, and could only sit in front of the computer and smoke. His fingers clutched the keyboard as he pondered for a long time, but couldn't write a single word. "Looks like I can only use the manuscript library." Father Wang cupped his chin as he pondered. He was so agitated that he couldn't calm down even after smoking several cigarettes in a row. Looking at the SQQ profile picture that kept jumping around, Father Wang finally steeled his heart and clicked on it, then directly sent the document to the using an offline file. "Don't rush me. I've delivered the goods. I don't even have my underwear," Father Wang typed. On the other side of the computer screen, the Lai Meng Meng was a little confused. "What? Did you give me the entire manuscript repository?" Father Wang was extremely agitated. "That's right. Are you satisfied now?" Lai Meng Meng was blank. He could see that Father Wang seemed to be in a bad mood, so he said weakly, "Sorry. I don't think I've received it yet." Father Wang replied straight away, "Word is very big, bear with it." Lai Meng Meng, dumbfounded, he waited for the offline file to be transferred over as he wondered what on earth had happened to Father Wang. At the same time, he was also thinking about the situation of online literature writers nowadays, and wondering if he had been pressuring them to update too much. After all, at the very beginning, online literature writers had been updating weekly, then came the era of 2,000 daily updates, which slowly developed into 4,000, 6,000, 8,000, and now the most outrageous era of 20,000 more. Indeed, it's too much. Lai Meng Meng sighed. He felt that he should be concerned about the health of his writers, and planned to find time to go to the Wang family's small villa to see how Father Wang was doing. At the same time, Father Wang was already fully armed. He was extremely worried about Wang Yuan's safety, so he and Mother Wang put on the latest enchanted long johns that Wang Ling had left behind. They called over some of the family's powerful enchanted gremlins and had them turn into human forms. The whole group was ready to set off from the villa with a bang. At that moment, a cute and mischievous little girl appeared at the entrance of the Wong family's small villa. She had a popsicle in her mouth and looked as cute as a doll. "Protect my lord." Lord Ma immediately realized that something wasn't right and shielded Father and Mother Wong behind him. He could sense that the girl in front of him was also a descendant of the dragon race. And her rank wasn't low. Chapter 1900. Thinking about it carefully, Father Wong suddenly realized that this seemed to be the second time someone had directly come looking for trouble with him and Mother Wong. AI, who had they offended? Didn't they just give birth to 2 nuclear bombs? Did they have to be targeted like this? Father Wong sighed endlessly in his heart. He vaguely recalled the last time Wong Won had been born, when the 1% of the grave gods had come looking for trouble with him. At the time, Immortal Toya had been present to help deliver Wong Won. In the end, because Wong Ling had enlightened him with his Qilin arm, the 1% of the grave gods had been directly suppressed. Little Kato. Anne. Little Eagle. Are you there? Father Wong called out in his heart. Because his left and right hands had been enlightened before, Father Wong had been a little out of his mind for a while, and Mother Wong had straightaway taught him a lesson, which had also resulted in his left and right hands being sealed. Now that they were in danger again, Father Wong didn't know if his call could wake them up again. After calling out twice and realizing that there was no response in his mind, he couldn't help feeling a little disappointed and nervous. There were many gremlins enlightened by Wong Ling in the Wong family's small villa, and with Lord Ma at the helm, there shouldn't be any problems with their safety. But now, without the help of his left and right hands, Father Wong still felt that the current situation was very unpredictable. At the same time, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was also paying attention to the old Wong family's plight. Crispy Noodles was keeping an eye on Wong Ling's situation, and Wang Wan and Ling Ming were there for Wang Miyu's situation. In this situation, the old Wong family might also be targeted. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that given the strength of these 2 old seniors of the Wong family, no evil demon would be able to leap over the old Wong family's lightning pool. But as the head of a sect, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal still wanted to take a look. On one hand, he wanted to see if there was anything he could do to help, and on the other hand, he felt that this was a very rare opportunity to learn from them at close range. He had already carried out many missions with Wong Ling before, and each time, he could feel that he was a little closer to achieving Great Dao. This time, the opportunity to watch the battle at close range had been provided by the 2 experienced seniors of the old Wong family, so the learning effect was naturally extraordinary. Furthermore, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was very considerate in setting up a temporary lockdown in the name of Battle Sect to ensure that Father Wong and Mother Wong's fight wouldn't be watched by ordinary cultivators. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was well aware that the old Wong family had always kept a low profile. Sect Master, the surroundings have been sealed. Our battle sect has sent a total of 300 gold core cultivators under the command of 20 nascent soul outer sect elders and 5 deity transformation stage peak elders to completely seal off the wasteland. They're using the name of the sect's maneuver, but they've only applied for 10 hours. After 10 hours, we'll have to leave, Klein said from the side. As the chief commander of the United Front Department, he could be considered one of the few foreign talents in battle sect working in Huaxiu Nation. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that he was a very capable and trustworthy person. It won't take that long. That's enough. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal nodded in satisfaction, then said, "Withdraw first, Kun. Leave the rest to me. That girl isn't simple. Sect Master, be careful." Kun nodded, then swiftly retreated on his spirit sword. According to their previous plan, after sealing off the area, they would directly retreat 150 li away and set up a barrier 300 li away. But as the leader of the dragon bloodline, it was naturally impossible for Yen Fu, who was naturally the leader of the dragon bloodline, to not sense this. She licked her popsicle with a smile on her face. Are these small fries around you also your people? Father Wang knew that Yen Fu was probably talking about people from Battle's sect. Although Father Wang was very weak, grenade throwing had been a guest at old Wang's house time and time again, so Father Wang could still sense his aura. But because their opponent was a dragon bloodline, Father Wang didn't place all his hopes on grenade throwing Senior Immortal. However, he could still guess grenade throwing Senior Immortal's purpose for this trip. One was to protect him, and the other was to learn. Apart from these two reasons, he couldn't think of any other reason. But the problem was that he really didn't have anything to learn. Father Wang's heart was on the verge of collapse. He didn't know when grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and some other people in the cultivation world had started to regard him as a big shot. He was clearly just a very ordinary body refinement cultivator. You little doll, your tone is very arrogant. With me here, you won't be able to touch a hair on my old master's head. At this critical moment, Lord Ma took the initiative to step forward. He still had that old-fashioned look on his face, and the curled mustache at the corner of his lips gave people a feeling of power without being angry. His pure white Taoist robe made him look especially sage-like in such a tense situation. Of course, the most impressive thing about him was the wood grain waistcoat on his neck. It was a gift from the cosmic god tree himself after he had fallen in love with it, and it gave off the scent of wood. Without saying anything else, Yen Fu made her move the moment she finished eating the popsicle in her hand. The shadow of a fire dragon surged behind her. Lord Ma and the goblins who had been enlightened by the Wang family were waiting solemnly. Lord Ma and Bed Immortal, the two most senior goblins of the Wang family, each carried Father Wang and Mother Wang on their shoulders. The ground in front of the Wang family's villa instantly exploded as their feet left the ground. It shattered with a rumble and turned into a roiling lake of fire from which lava surged and gave off astonishing energy. The surrounding ground had all collapsed, leaving only the Wang family's small villa alone in this area, like an isolated island. Wang Ling had enlightened the entire villa, so Father and Mother Wang weren't worried about any property damage at all. They were just a little astonished by Yen Fu's ability. She looked like a very young girl, but her attacks were so decisive and ruthless that she directly disintegrated the ground under her feet. What an astonishing aura! Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal frowned. Actually, he had a third reason for coming here this time, which was to collect accurate data on the dragon descendants at close range. Although Earth had already been upgraded and the realms above True Immortal had been liberated, the speed at which the dragon descendants were regenerating was too fast. If they didn't have a good countermeasure, apart from those hidden immemorial beings, few cultivators on Earth would be able to compete with these dragon descendants who had the advantage of bloodlines. It was obvious that Lord Ma had never expected Yen Fu to be so troublesome. He wanted to get serious, but it was a little inconvenient with Father Wang sitting on his shoulder. Old Master, it doesn't seem convenient for me to fight with you on my back. Do you want to enter my body? No. Father Wang refused straight away and confidently. AI. Lord Ma sighed, a little disappointed on his face. He had clearly already cleaned up his internal environment. Because of the cosmic god tree, the reserves in his body had long since been emptied out as fertilizer. Right now, his body was very clean. But his old master was too willful, he couldn't get over this psychological obstacle, which gave him a headache. Chapter 1901. Lord Ma knew better than anyone that his body was now very clean. Since falling in love with the cosmic god tree, he had gained a girlfriend who liked to clean, and he looked a lot younger. He was already the oldest gremlin in old Wang's family, and Little Sheep had always called him uncle with white hair and a ruddy complexion, which touched Lord Ma very much. At that moment, as one of the few furniture gremlins in old Wang's family who had been strengthened by version 3. Zero's enchantment spell, Lord Ma abruptly changed into a very coquettish Western-style tuxedo the next second to highlight his status as an elder in the world of enchanted gremlins. "Bed immortal, I'll leave old master to you. I'll go beat this girl back." As Lord Ma said this, he directly teleported Father Wong to Bed Immortal, who was carrying Father Wong and Mother Wong on each shoulder and was very steady. He and Lord Ma were old partners. In this situation, there was no need for them to say much, just a look was enough for them to work together tacitly. "What a joke. Do you think a gremlin you created with magic can contend with us, the descendants of dragons?" Yen Ruo giggled. She found it inconceivable that an enchanted piece of furniture could actually speak so confidently and want to fend off a descendant of dragons with noble blood. "Arrogant girl, so what if you're a descendant of dragons? My master has never cared about trash like you." Putting his hands behind his back, Lord Ma looked disdainfully at her, the tail of his Western-style tuxedo fluttering in the windless air. Yen Ruo couldn't take it anymore to be looked down upon by an enchanted toilet. In any case, she was a descendant of dragons and didn't approve of this kind of matchup. To actually let a toilet be her opponent, this was looking down on the dragon clan too much. "You're courting death." Yen Ruo instantly flew into a rage and spat out dragon flames. This was the divine fire of the dragon clan, which alternated between purple and black, and had a frightening temperature. The moment it was spat out, the flaming lake below immediately resonated, and several fire dragons soared into the sky from the lake to form a pincer attack on Lord Ma. Lord Ma's face was as calm as an ancient well, but he was secretly astonished at Yen Ruo's methods. She clearly looked like a very gentle and quiet girl, but her moves were all large-scale destructive attacks. Although he was the most experienced gremlin in the Wong family, Lord Ma still knew nothing about the grand occasion of the Dragon Clan. This battle was also a lesson for Lord Ma himself. However, Lord Ma didn't panic in the slightest. He quickly dodged. Although the formation of the fire dragon was sudden, it still gave Lord Ma some time to react. The rest of the Wong family's spiritual monsters hid in the house and watched. With the entire villa surrounded by the flaming lake, the temperature in the house rose by a lot. The spiritual monsters looked at the doomsday-like scene outside through the window, and all of them felt a lingering fear. The dragon race was truly too frightening. There were not many enlightened monsters in the Wong family who could fight against a dragon descendant of this level. If it were them, they would probably be burned to ashes immediately after coming into contact with the dragon race's divine fire. Just like Jing Zhe, Yen Ruo had also grown over the past few days, becoming more ferocious than before. As Lord Ma fought, he also felt that it was a pity. If such a powerful ability could be used to benefit the human cultivation world, it would be a wonderful way of symbiosis. He didn't understand why the dragon race had to pursue the mission of restoring the glory of the past. Since they could come back to life from their hearts, it was not impossible to walk a path of peaceful coexistence and symbiosis. With a bang, Lord Ma dodged sideways to avoid a mountain-sized fire. Yen Ruo's spiritual power seemed to be endless, and she didn't care about the problem of consumption when casting spells. She sprinkled her dragon breath and spiritual power in large amounts, burning the ground in front of her into a fiery red. The nearby ground was all cracked and shattered on the spot, forming a dry abyss. "Do you only know how to hide? Toilet bowl?" Yen Ruo taunted. She didn't regard Lord Ma as her opponent at all, and was just releasing her temper willfully. When Lord Ma heard this, his face suddenly became serious. He felt that this little dragon girl really needed to be disciplined. As the head of the goblins enlightened by the Wong family, he had always considered himself to be elegant and easygoing. When he had dodged these attacks earlier, he had planned to use verbal admonition to make Yen Ruo surrender. But as it turned out, Lord Ma felt that he had been thinking too much. Sure enough, verbal evasion didn't work for everyone. As the head of the family, he now had to teach Yen Ruo a lesson. Whoosh! At that moment, Yen Ruo spat out the dragon god fire again, and her pink skirt glowed under the resonance power of her dragonkin bloodline. She intensified the power of the dragon god fire again, and this time, it directly hit Lord Ma head-on and completely engulfed him. This time, Lord Ma didn't choose to dodge, but directly opened his mouth to take Yen Ruo's dragon god fire, and with a terrifying devouring power, he formed a wonderful cave inside his body to continuously suck in the dragon god fire. Everyone was shocked. He had taken on the dragon god fire head-on. Furthermore, he was even devouring the dragon god fire. This was simply heaven-defying. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was horrified when he saw this from a distance. He knew of Lord Ma's background, but he had never thought that he would actually be so strong. No wonder old Senior Wang hadn't made a move. It turned out that he had already anticipated Lord Ma's strength. Could Lord Ma alone resist it? As expected of old Senior Wang, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sighed in his heart at Father Wang and Mother Wang's formidable strength. It seemed that the dragonkin wasn't strong enough for them to make a move. Although it was very strong, the goblins enlightened by the old Wang family were already enough to deal with it. I don't believe you can keep swallowing. Like Jingze, Yen Ruo had a kind of magical arrogance. She looked down on Lord Ma to begin with, and it was even harder for her to accept the fact that her dragon god fire was ineffective. In the next moment, she increased the intensity of the flames and tried to use the dragon god fire to blow up Lord Ma's internal space. But what Yen Ruo herself hadn't expected was that when she activated the dragon god fire, Lord Ma's body instead underwent a new change. Lord Ma's black swallow-tailed coat was visibly changing as the divine fire of the dragon clan continued to devour it. Not only that, but even the color of his eyes and hair had changed. His black tuxedo turned a gradual black-gold color, and his hair and curly goatee turned pure gold. Furthermore, Lord Ma's aura was even stronger than before. As he continued to absorb the dragon god fire, he became stronger than before. Uncle Ma's aura seems to have increased. I know. This is fourth gear. Fourth gear. The enlightened goblins discussed among themselves. Oh, it's version 4.0 of the enlightened spell. It needs a special mechanism to trigger the upgrade. Little Sheep said softly, now, Uncle Ma is already a version 4.0 enlightened goblin. At the same time, Father and Mother Wang heard Sheep's voice. Realization dawned on them, and they were speechless. Who could have thought? Lord Ma had actually evolved into a quenched toilet bowl while fighting the dragonkin. You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.